Chapter 404, Initial Success on Formations. Chapter 404, Initial Success on Formations. Reverie _ Yao Huiyu no longer paid attention to Ling Han. Honestly, with Ling Han's current strength, he really couldn't interest him to fight. Waving his hand could instantly kill Ling Han. He looked at the crimson-red chilling ice grass, taking large strides forward. He chose the flame area, and instantly, waves of flames rose from the ground, spurting towards him. Yao Huiyu brushed casually with his hands as flashes of sword chi shot out, annihilating all of the flames. However, as he approached the center with each step, the power of the flames were more violent and turned into a fire snake, convolving around him. Extinguish! Yao Huiyu used as his fingers as a sword. Shio, shio, shio. 9 flashes of chi shot out in unison. Ling Han's gaze brightened. 9 flashes of sword chi. This was a person who possessed the most potent sword chi he had seen thus far. It was unknown whether this was Yao Huiyu's limit. If he reached 10 flashes of sword chi, then he qualified to form Sword Ray, stepping into the second level of sword path. However, the limit of sword chi should be near 30 flashes. If it were him, he definitely wouldn't form sword rays hastily, but instead push the amount of flashes of sword chi to the limit and then form the rays. This way, the power of sword ray would be stronger. The power of 9 flashes of sword chi was shocking as expected. Although it was with fingers as a sword, it suppressed the fire snake completely. However, 3 more fire snakes gushed out, assaulting towards Yao Huiyu. Now, even the exceptional talent revealed a cautious expression, waving both hands as sword light instantly shocked the heavens. He used the mysterious 3000. Yes, yes, yes. Ling Han watched and confirmed it with his own sword technique, instantly feeling like he benefited profoundly. After all, the Heaven Sword sect passed down this sword technique, and Yao Huiyu could receive the devoted guidance of elites within the sect, but Ling Han could only fumble on his own. The difference was too great. There were some subtle changes which Ling Han praised inwardly as he kept becoming enlightened on why and how things were. Although Yao Huiyu was a talented swordsman, this land of fire was surely terrifying as endless flames swept over, forcing him to draw his sword. Ding! A cold ray of sword light, dazzling heaven and earth. The fire snake was once again suppressed, but the fiercer the suppression, the fiercer the backlash. More fire snakes scuttled out as if they were inextinguishable. Yao Huiyu is very strong, Ling Han said inwardly. This person's tier was only at the first layer of the flower blossom tier, but his battle prowess was at least 10 stars and easily surpassed 9 stars. Moreover, this obviously couldn't possibly be Yao Huiyu's full strength. Yao Huiyu was still advancing, but turned slower and slower, finally stopping 2 meters from the crimson-red chilling ice grass. It seemed he was a few steps away from being able to harvest the spirit medicine, but because of the difference of these few steps, it was so close yet worlds apart. At last, Yao Huiyu could only retreat without choice. Ling Han assessed it. Apparently only the defense of the peak stage of the flower blossom tier could get close to that spirit medicine. So, he definitely had to improve his cultivation to the 9th layer spiritual ocean tier, and then use Black Tower's power boost. Then he would have 70% certainty. It was enough. He took out another petal of golden flower of the stone, threw it towards Yao Huiyu, and said, "The fire and ice are both strangely poisonous. This is golden flower of the stone. It detoxifies." Yao Huiyu caught it, shoving it in his mouth without thinking. Tong Jiming was just about to shout out, "Master," but Yao Huiyu had already swallowed it, nodding towards Ling Han in gratitude. Ling Han smiled and turned to leave. His current cultivation was still a bit weak, and staying here had no meaning. It would be better to first find the heavenly luck stone and return when he'd reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, which would roughly take 3 months. In the following few days, he wandered all over, searching for the whereabouts of the heavenly luck stone, but had no results. Instead, he encountered a flower blossom tier beast and was chased closely, hiding inside the Black Tower in the end. Flower blossom tier opponents were too strong. Even if he had 10th tier spirit tool at hand, he wasn't qualified to fight them. Other people couldn't stay in this area for long, spending at most 10 days before they had to leave. They had to at least retreat to the second ring, dispelling the chaotic, evil thoughts before re-entering the core area. However, Ling Han was unafraid of them entering Black Tower once. He could expel all the violent, chaotic thoughts inside. Moreover, after he kept enduring and toughening his divine sense with the Black Stone, he gained a considerable immunity to such assaults of chaos. In a flash, 1 month's time had already passed as more and more elites entered this area. The news of the heavenly luck stone had already spread. Perhaps spiritual infant-tier elites would be enthused, seizing this chance for their own descendants or inheritors. Ling Han's cultivation advanced into the 6th layer of the spiritual ocean tier and reached the late stage, not too far from breaking through to the 7th layer. This was within his expectations, but what made him exulted was that he had a breakthrough in formations. He successfully carved 15 formation patterns on a rock. Not only was it without a teeny bit of error, but also was it without pauses. Perfect. After carving different formation patterns on 7 stone rods, he sprayed them off-handedly, but it fanned out orderly into 7 positions. Instantly, each formation pattern lit up, drawing the power of heaven and earth in a miraculous way through the 7 stone rods. A spirit snake was forming, but as it had just started, pa, 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 the 7 stone rods exploded into pieces and the formation immediately crumbled. It couldn't be helped. These were only normal stones. How could they possibly bear the power of heaven and earth drawn by a 4th-tier formation? Not to mention 4th tier. Even 2nd tier and 3rd tier were a no-Gothi would only be able to bear a formation at the 1st tier. Ling Han carved on rocks, not wanting to waste the purple patterned gold he had bought. 5th tier rare gold naturally shouldn't be wasted, and fortunately, it weren't 6th tier. Otherwise, he might not even be able to buy it, even if he were willing to put up a large amount of 3-star origin crystals. Worldly treasures were extremely rare. He returned inside the Black Tower, starting to carve on the purple patterned gold. Small heavenly origin spirit snake formation needs 7 formations eyes. In reality, if I can carve 180 basic 4th tier water type formations eyes, I can set up all 4th tier water type formations. However, formations are truly boundless. If I wanted to set up all formations, how much formations I would be needed? The cost of the materials alone would make a heaven tier elite go broke. I only grasped small heavenly origin spirit snake formation. If I obtain more formations in the future, I'll think about the cost of the materials then. Moreover, there might be formation eyes passed down from the ancient times, and I only need to refine them to set the formation up. He focused all his attention and began to carve formation patterns on purple patterned gold. Inside the Black Tower, he didn't need to worry about the lack of strength, unable to carve formation patterns on 5th tier rare gold. This was a huge advantage, virtually decreasing the amount of possible errors. Every formation pattern was very complex. Ling Han wasn't fast, but his hands were quite stable, without the slightest pause or delay. After 1 hour, the first formation eye was completed. When he stopped, he instantly felt like his brain was emptied. This was due to expending too much power of the divine sense. Chapter 405, Attracting Hatred Again. Chapter 405, Attracting Hatred Again. Reverie _ Ling Han no longer made formation eyes. Carving formation patterns consumed a surprising amount of soul power. Even if he was now at the late stage of spiritual ocean tier, he still felt there wasn't enough soul power to use. He exited the Black Tower, strolling and continuing to search for the whereabouts of the heavenly luck stone. He waited until his mental spirit recovered fully, and then continued to make the second formation's eye. In this way, he spent a whole another 7 days to create all 7 formations eyes, and his cultivation also reached peak stage of 6th layer spiritual ocean tier. Maybe tonight or tomorrow would be able to break through. Originally, formations eyes needed to be refined by divine sense, branding one's own consciousness in order to use it. However, the 7 formations eyes were originally carved by Ling Han, leaving his will behind during the creation process, so he didn't need to go out of his way to refine it again. He waved his right hand and pa, 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 7 formations' eyes appeared one after another around him as 7 virtual images also appeared in his consciousness. Corresponding to each one of them, even the formation patterns were exactly alike. Wang. Inside his consciousness, the formation patterns on every formation's eyes began to light up. Each of the 105 formation patterns send out 104 light beams, linking the other formation patterns together and forming a miraculous veined pattern. Hong. Around him, 7 of the real formation's eyes were also immediately activated. Like in his consciousness, the formation patterns lit up, linking together and forming a formation. The power of heaven and earth collected, swiftly solidifying into a spirit snake that was snow-white all over and emitting a shockingly imposing presence. In an instant, this spirit snake was fully formed. It was over 30 meters long, coiling around in the sky above the formation like a divine dragon. With Ling Han's thought, this spirit snake also began to operate perfectly at his command, just as he pleased. All of this was because he had a small, heavenly origin spirit snake formation in his consciousness that communicated with the 7 formation's eyes. Once the power of his divine sense was exhausted, this formation would either disappear on its own or the spirit snake would get out of control. Fortunately, while branding formation patterns expended a great deal of divine sense, the expenditure of maintaining a formation was much smaller. Based on Ling Han's estimates, he was completely capable of operating it for one entire day. Go! Ling Han lightly shouted, and the snake spirit instantly rose up like a flood dragon, ramming everything in its path, shattering large trees and rocks from time to time, and at other times wrapping him up and forming a defense. Exploring for half an hour, Ling Han knew the effects and limitations of this formation inside out. The spirit snake could attack and defend like a beast pet, advancing to harm enemies or retreating to guard. However, there was a condition that it couldn't leave for more than 30 meters from the formation. This was a shortcoming, but it could also be solved easily simply by moving the formation as one moved. So, this flaw wasn't fatal. The natural enemy of formations was the environment. Small heavenly origin spirit snake formation was a water-type formation, so the spirit chi it drew was also of the water element. When at a place with thinner water spirit chi, the power of the formation would decrease greatly. At a place where all spirit chi was thin, changing to other formations would also have no use at all. Why did formations have to borrow the power of heaven and earth? Without the power of heaven and earth to borrow, it'd definitely be ruined. Try one last move, Ling Han shouted loudly and said, "Spirit snake, enter." Shdo. The 30-meter-long spirit snake merged into his chest, disappearing, but Ling Han's presence immediately grew drastically, reaching the level of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Formation spirit entering the body can increase battle prowess, and the higher one's normal battle prowess, the greater the extent of the increase. For instance, in case of someone who has 1-star battle prowess, if the battle prowess of the formation is 10 stars, then one would have 10 stars battle prowess. However, in case of someone who has 10 stars battle prowess, merging with a 10 stars formation will lead to the two overlapping, so having 12 stars or 13 stars battle prowess would be pretty decent. This is the same as spirit tools. People with low battle prowess that use it would be like sending coal in the snow, but it was superfluous for people with strong battle prowess. The effects are completely different. Now, with formations, how many stars can my battle prowess reach? Ling Han scratched his head. It really was hard to measure, because he never even reached 20 stars battle prowess even while overdosing on pills in his previous lifetime. He really was unclear on how to evaluate battle prowess above this. Whatever, all I need to know is that I'm strong enough. Ling Han stored the 7 purple patterned gold rods. The higher grade the materials used for formation's eyes not only could withstand the rampant power of heaven and earth, but also could fend against others destroying the formation using brute force or weapons. Otherwise, if the formation's eye was destroyed, the formation would also be broken. He walked around randomly, thinking that although there weren't any gains temporarily, with 2 more months, he would advance into the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. He could at least retrieve crimson-red chilling ice grass, which was the main purpose of his trip. No matter the black stone or the heavenly luck stone, Those were just flowers added to embroidery. After walking a while, he heard light footsteps from behind. Very soon, two people walked out from the forest one after the other. The one in front was a girl in full white clothes and concealed by a white veil, but obviously pretty and nearing perfection. Zhu Xian. Behind her was a youngster, but it wasn't Yao Huiyu. If Yao Huiyu truly appeared here, with his haughtiness, he would definitely walk alongside Zhu Xian, couldn't possibly follow behind someone. It was Luoda. Lady Zhu, Ling Han greeted. Zhu Xian's knit her willowy brows slightly. She knew Ling Han also came for crimson red chilling ice grass, and this made her extremely displeased, but the spirit medicines in the world didn't have a label to show who owned them. Would she chase Ling Han away then? Moreover, she hadn't the right. Therefore, she only bowed to greet Ling Han, and then walked off showily. Luoda stared coldly at Ling Han as he had never seen Zhu Xian treat a man so modestly, making him burn with jealousy and wanting to kill someone right away. He met Zhu Xian by coincidence and immediately followed by the goddess's side, but Zhu Xian couldn't find crimson red chilling ice grass all this time. She was in an extremely foul mood, and had no mood to talk nonsense with him, making him that he received a cold treatment. First, Zhu Xian was as noble as a goddess, and second, her strength was way above his. Even if he tried to fight, he wouldn't beat her. Nonetheless, Zhu Xian treated him coldly, but bowed to pay respect towards a youngster. Once comparing the two, how could he not be infuriated? Zhu Xian disappeared quickly, and Luoda followed, but in a short while, Ling Han heard footsteps from behind. He turned to look and saw Luoda was quickly chasing after him. "Boy, stop!" Luoda shouted loudly. Ling Han didn't stop moving, pretending not to hear. "Xiao!" Luoda leapt out and landed in front of Ling Han, blocking his path, and said furiously, "You deaf? Didn't you hear me? Oh, so you were calling me. I thought it was a dog. Don't you say? You really look alike." Ling Han said smilingly. Luoda was temporarily startled, but soon became furious. This youngster dared to mock him? He said threateningly, "Are you tired of living?" Chapter 406, Fighting with a Twig. Chapter 406, Fighting with a Twig. Reverie _ Good dogs don't block the road, get lost. Ling Han waved his hands. Ha, ha. Luoda laughed grimly. The youngsters nowadays were the epitome of the ignorant knows not fear. Facing he who was a spiritual pedestal tier elite, and on the prodigy roll, Ling Han still dared to be so arrogant. He snorted and said, "I won't argue with you for now. Say, how do you know Fairy Jew?" After all was said, he was still bothered by Zhu Xian's attitude towards Ling Han. Exactly what was the relationship between the two that Zhu Xian would be respectful to Ling Han? "Oh, you're talking about Xian." Ling Han laughed mischievously and began to spout nonsense. "She's a daughter-in-law to be in my family. Of course she has to pay respect when seeing me. My Zhu Xian really knows her 3 obediences and 4 virtues." Luoda was stunned by his nonsense, then came back to his senses and said, "Lies." Zhu Xian was a proud disciple of the Half-Moon sect, and couldn't possibly be some family's daughter-in-law to be. "Tisk, tsk. You even found that out, such high intelligence." Ling Han intentionally complimented. Luoda's face turned dark. This youngster dared to trick him like a monkey? Fire erupting from his eyes, he said, "If you still don't explain honestly, don't blame me for being merciless." He unleashed his spiritual pedestal tier presence, which came rolling at Ling Han. For a genius like him, a month's time was enough to change a lot. He completely stabilized his tier and pushed his cultivation to late stage of the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier 3 times the strength of when he battled Shan Zhongcheng. He possessed unlimited improvement space, but no matter how much the 9th layer spiritual ocean tier warriors solidify their tiers, there was always a limit. The closer to that limit, the harder it was to improve, so in the same amount of time, his strength improvement definitely surpassed Shan Zhongcheng. Battling Shan Zhongcheng again, he had complete confidence in winning. Ling Han intentionally hugged his own shoulders and said, "Don't scare me. I'm easily frightened." "Ha ha, You certainly should be shocked, because you're facing Luo De of the prodigy role. Luo De said proudly, content with Ling Han's fear. Ling Han continued, when I'm frightened, I go insane and like to punch people. Not sure how many people have been beaten and knelt on the ground, calling me grandpa. You're not thinking of calling me grandpa, right? The corner of Luo Da's mouth twitched. He only felt that the youngster before him was truly caustic as he said balefully, your bad-mouthing is simply seeking your own death. Hey, you're scaring me again, Ling Han said smilingly. I'm not scaring you. I'm really going to hit you. Luo Do attacked, reaching out with his left hand. As martial intent circulated, Hong, brilliance burst forth, as if he came stepping on divine red clouds with a formidable presence. Ling Han smiled slightly and formed a fist with his right hand. As Luo De was about to seize him, he abruptly threw out a punch. Pong! With a heavy sound, the two both fell several steps back. Ling Han was shocked and said, I underestimated you a little. You're actually able to force me backwards. Sigh, one can't be too proud. This needs to be changed. T. Luo De was both shocked and furious those words were for him to say. He was a spiritual pedestal tier warrior and should have battle prowess completely suppressing Ling Han with his spiritual ocean tier. But in this exchange, while he didn't use full strength or arts, it was still an attack of a spiritual pedestal tier. The key was that Ling Han hadn't even reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, yet had such shocking battle prowess. He was almost like a second Xinzhong Cheng, a true monster. On this term's prodigy role, this youngster was definitely a dark horse that was going to shine. Thinking so, Luo Da's murderous character instantly emboldened the prodigy role didn't need another freak to contend with him. Harbinging killing intent towards me? Ling Han shook his head and said, well, originally, we had no grudges nor grievances and I would drop it after beating you up. But you've shown killing intent towards me, so I have no choice to kill you. That's called not getting taken advantage of. Kill me? Luo De sneered, even Xinzhong Cheng definitely wouldn't rival him now. Not to mention Ling Han wasn't even at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. He brandished his sword, looking quite out of sorts as a brawny man like him held two short swords in hand. Ling Han casually waved in Xiao. A twig landed in his hand. He said smilingly, I'll kill you with this twig. Luo De was furious. Xinzhong Cheng refused to draw his sword against him, and now Ling Han said he would use a twig to kill him. They were looking down on him completely. With strength comes the confidence. Ling Han laughed loudly, initiating the attack. With one sword strike, shou, 7 flashes of sword chi broke out. 7 flashes of sword chi. Luo De cried out, revealing an astounded expression. He only cultivated 6 flashes of sword chi. Die. Luo De waved the dual swords. Threads of white silk intertwined, forming into something like a spider web. This was the mystical art he cultivated that could turn sword chi into a fish net. Once it retracted, its terrifying lethality would be explosively revealed. He had one less ray of sword chi, but he had a large tier's advantage and a spirit tool in hand, enough to make up for it. Pu. Ling Han's sword chi struck the fish net, instantly tearing open a hole, but at the cost of the former disappearing they were even. However, Luo Da's expression was getting worse and worse. He clearly had a large tier's advantage in spirit chi that was activated by a spirit tool, but even so, the quality of their sword chi turned out to be the same. One had to know that the quality of sword chi was decided by 3 points. One's own power, comprehension of the way of the sword, and the medium which the sword chi was unleashed from. He had an absolute advantage in power and medium, yet it was still a draw. It was clear just how great of a difference there was between their comprehension of the way of the sword. So? Ling Han said smilingly, raising his branch and slicing towards Luo De. Under the instillment of origin power, the twig was also as solid as a metal sword. Arrogance and conceit only brings one's own destruction. Luo De sneered, waving his sword as infinite threads intertwined, seeking to trap Ling Han inside it. Ling Han had no intention of being entangled. His expression turned stern, and he exercised the mysterious 3000. Luo instantly felt a chill all over his body. The presence Ling Han emitted reminded him of Yao Huiyu. When Yao Huiyu simply raised a finger, sword intent reached the heavens, easily annihilating two 9th-layer spiritual pedestal tier elites. Two completely different people, but the presence they emitted was shockingly similar, making his legs go soft. Hong, 276, flashed of sword light rippled, shooting towards Luo De. Luo De clenched his teeth. Shwa, shwa, shwa. He waved his sword as he retreated, weaving a tight-knit web of sword chi in front of him. Pu, 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 pu. Sword light stormed over, and this large web instantly shattered. His weaving speed was far from comparable to the sword light's destructiveness. Although 10 flashes of sword light were lost, there were still over 200 that struck at him. Luo De roared, blocking with all his strength. Sword light gushed over. Luo De was covered with wounds, but he saved himself. After all, a twig set off these sword lights. Not only did it not reach the amount of 800, the lethality of it was weakened by a lot as well. Additionally, Luo De was a spiritual pedestal tier elite after all, possessing elite battle prowess. So, he scored a narrow escape in the end. Chapter 407, Battling Ding Yuan Xin. Chapter 407, Battling Ding Yuan Xin. Reverie _ I actually didn't kill him? Ling Han was startled, then shook his head, loosening his grip as the twig turned into fine powder. That was just a normal twig and couldn't possibly endure his sword intent. Once the origin power dispersed, it naturally crumbled. Luo De looked overwhelmed with shock at Ling Han. Was this youngster a monster? He was only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but his battle prowess was stronger than Shan Zhongqing's, almost annihilating him with a twig used as a sword. Ling Han stroked his chin and said, "What to do? I said to use a twig, but I couldn't kill the man. Now that's awkward." Luo De's teeth chattered, but his expression was resolute as he said, "Kill me if you want. Don't humiliate me." Ling Han laughed mischievously and said, "Surely a figure of the prodigy role. At least you have some guts. All right, if you want to die so badly, I'll have to fulfill your wish." Luo De's face twitched involuntarily. Could Ling Han have had the thought of letting him go? But was his unyieldingness going to make him lose his life? The price of this unyieldingness was too great. Ling Han's expression suddenly turned stern. Lifting his head and looking at the sky, he said, "Since lordship has come, there's no need to stay hidden. Hee, just passing by and watching the fun." A middle-aged man in his 30s leapt off the top of a tree, his body lanky, but still emitting a charming demeanor even in his 30s. The 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier? Ling Han evaluated him in his mind. If he were unarmed, his battle prowess would be about 2 stars spiritual pedestal tier. Using the mysterious 3000 could upgrade his battle prowess to 3 stars, and on top of the 2 spirit tools, he could reach 7 stars, and then with addition of the formation, his limit could match spiritual pedestal tier's 9 stars. This was extremely shocking, as he was now only at the 7th layer spiritual ocean tier. Battle prowess that crossed an entire large tier. This was truly going to be nature-defying. Of course, taking Black Tower's power boost into account. Never mind, this wasn't normal battle prowess and could only be used once every tier. However, he was freakish, but his opponent could also be freakish. A 9th layer spiritual pedestal tier elite didn't necessarily only have 9 stars battle prowess. It could be 10 stars, and maybe 15 stars, or even 20 stars, who knew? "What is your lordship called?" Ling Han said smilingly. "Surname Ding, and named Yuan Xin," the middle-aged man said smilingly. As his gaze swept by Ling Han, a baleful presence was emitted. Ding Yuan Xin? Ding Gaoyang's older brother, a figure on the last term's prodigy roll, and not ranked low at all. Now, Ling Han was immediately certain that the opponent's battle prowess was definitely not just 9 stars. Without the ability to fight beyond one's tier, could one ascend onto the prodigy role? No way. One had to have at least battle prowess surpassing 5 stars. Ling Han let out an "oh" and said, "I might have heard of one called Ding Gao Yang. You know him?" "That's my brother," Ding Yuan Xian said. "Then I'm truly sorry. I butchered him." Ling Han shrugged his shoulders. "I know, so I've come to kill you," Ding Yuan Xian said calmly, but his tone emitted an extreme coldness. Ling Han stroked his chin and said, "You sure you can kill me? You certainly are extraordinary, being only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but having battle prowess that broke through spiritual ocean tier's limit, reaching spiritual pedestal tier 2 stars, and even 3 stars. But that's all that it is. I am at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and my battle prowess can reach 15 stars. How can you resist?" Ding Yuan Xian said indifferently, appearing extremely calm. "So what are you waiting for? Let me test out 15 stars spiritual pedestal tier battle prowess." Ling Han laughed loudly. "As you wish," Ding Yuan Xian snorted. His figure flashed and already cut to the front of Ling Han. A palm swatted towards Ling Han's forehead, and before the palm hit, origin power had already struck overwhelmingly, filled with terrifying destructive power. Ling Han's figure shot backwards. Wang, the thunder battle armor was already activated, forming a lightning barrier. The demon birth sword also appeared in his hand, and as he lit up 2 vein-like lines, he sliced with his sword and 7 flashes of sword chi waved. Pa! Under this attack, he was still sent flying. His palm, neck, and other areas revealed cracked skin and traces of blood. The spiritual pedestal tier 15 stars battle prowess was too terrifying, and he hadn't activated small, heavenly origin spirit snake formation, so he was even less of a match. Ding Yuan Xian, however, revealed an astounded expression. Although he didn't give it his all in this attack, with his strength, a casual attack was at least 10 stars battle prowess. Yet it only shocked and cracked open Ling Han's skin. This was too ridiculous. Ling Han neglected it on the inside. If it weren't for the fact that he was still at the rock cliff body and hadn't yet advanced into the iron sheet body, the shock from such power wouldn't even be able to crack his skin. Only Luoda was frightened to the point of sweating bile. Ling Han was actually strong to such a degree, and he actually wanted to kill Ling Han. He truly had an exaggerated opinion of his own abilities. The problem was, how could Ling Han be so strong? What spirit tool is that? Ding Yuan Xian stared at demon birth sword in Ling Han's hand. Just now, if he weren't intimidated by the sword, making his battle prowess drop by a whole lot, Ling Han definitely wouldn't have simply been sent flying. It wasn't only this sword, but the battle armor also had surprising defense. The two together gave Ling Han battle prowess that could match spiritual pedestal tier 10 stars battle prowess. "You guess," Ling Han said smilingly. "No matter if you don't say. After I seize it from you, it'll be mine," Ding Yuan said, filled with confidence. His battle prowess was as high as 15 stars, and Ling Han had difficulty in receiving a casual attack of his, so how could Ling Han fend against him at his full strength? Ling Han clapped and said smilingly, "Your imagination is quite rich. Whether it's imagination or reality, you'll know very soon." A hint of greed was revealed Ding Yuan Xian's eyes. The 2 spirit tools made his eyes red with desire. Whether it was to avenge his brother or to seize the 2 spirit tools, he had to annihilate Ling Han. Hong, he attacked, a palm striking out, moving the wind and clouds. The 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier was the limit that mortals could reach, so the might was naturally terrifying. His palm struck out as vein-like lines lit up one after another, and with a hong, boundless flames sprayed outwards, turning the surroundings into a sea of flames. "Ah!" Luoda screamed tragically, hurriedly trying to frantically escape. He was only at the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, so how could he defend against the might of the flames? On the thunder battle armor, vein-like lines wove closely and emitted ceaseless light of lightning, convolving around Ling Han and blocking the might of the flames. However, this was quite unbearable. His tier was still somewhat low, and the power of lightning activated wasn't strong enough, unable to match the might of the flames. Ling Han struck with his sword, and as 7 flashes of sword chi danced, he circled around Ding Yuan Xian. Not enough. Ding Yuan Xian sneered. The advantage in his cultivation was too great. The difference couldn't be changed no matter what methods Ling Han used. Ling Han didn't respond and simply fought on. His left hand shook, unleashing the purple golden patterned rods, laying out small heavenly origin spirit snake formation. Instantly, a spirit snake appeared and entered his body, increasing his battle prowess furthermore. Huh, formations? Ding Yuan Xian revealed a shocked expression. Never would have thought you're also a formation master. However, even if you've set a formation, you're still not my opponent at all. Pong, pong, pong. The two battled fiercely, but without a doubt, it was one-sided. Ding Yuan Xian had the complete upper hand, and with only a few moves, signs of danger already surrounded Ling Han. This was also because he had the Thunder Battle Armor, or else he would have already died several times. Nevertheless, he was still riddled with scars, and in some places even wounded to the bone, affecting his battle prowess greatly. Chapter 408. The Eighth Flash of Sword Chi. Chapter 408. The Eighth Flash of Sword Chi. Reverie _ Battling till near exhaustion, Ling Han began to run. Ding Yuan Xian was obviously in hot pursuit. The two played out a flee and kill. Why didn't Ling Han hide in the Black Tower? That was because he didn't want to rely too much on the Black Tower. The Black Tower was certainly the most precious treasure for saving his life, but if Ling Han always treated it as an omnipotent trump card, then should he encounter an expert the Black Tower couldn't fend against, what would he do? This wasn't exaggerated at all since the Black Tower was heavily damaged, and there were plenty of elites in the world. Besides, forming the habit of hiding inside the Black Tower when faced with danger would make Ling Han lose unyieldingness and courage. To want to climb to the peak of martial arts, courage was definitely a trait that couldn't be lost. So Ling Han would rather lick the blood on his wounds and not hide inside the Black Tower. He was using Ding Yuan Xian to toughen himself, because he felt that the door to the eighth flash of Sword Chi would very soon open up to him. He was the type to be more resilient and have a stronger fighting spirit the greater the pressure. So Ding Yuan Xian was a good whetstone that could hone his sharp sword even sharper. Time and time again, Ling Han almost fell into the land of everlasting perdition, but activating the indestructible Heaven Scroll, each injury would be quickly recovered no matter how heavy it was, allowing him to keep circling around. Continuing for 7 days, Ling Han retreated whilst fighting. The most dangerous time was when an attack landed on his chest where the hole in the Thunder Battle Armor was, making his heart almost explode. Fortunately, with a drop of the indestructible True Fluid, he immediately recovered, but it also made him break out in cold sweat from fright. But lingering near the line of death this one time, Ling Han received enough realization, and as he struck his sword, 8 flashes of sword chi fired out. What? Ding Yuan Xian's eyes almost fell out. He clearly almost pierced through Ling Han's chest, and under the shock of origin power, Ling Han's organs should have exploded. However, Ling Han was not only completely fine, but also improved further, forming the 8 flash of sword chi. What a true freak. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "Thanks. Thank your sister, ugh." He never had the intention of helping Ling Han's enlightenment. Ding Yuan Xian's expression turned stern as he said, "So what if you have 8 flashes of sword chi? This absolutely can't make up the difference in tier between you and I." "You're right, so I'm not going to play with you anymore." Ling Han leapt and wormed into the thick forest, and with a flash, he entered the Black Tower. He couldn't possibly defeat Ding Yuan Xian in the short term, and since he formed the 8 flash of sword chi, the mission was completed. There was naturally no need to keep tangling with the latter still had to cultivate. Ding Yuan Xian chased to the point, but Ling Han's traces were already all gone, naturally making him bellow repeatedly in wrath. After chasing for 7 days and 7 nights, he still hadn't killed a small martial artist at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but instead let Ling Han form the 8 flash of sword kit was a direct slap to his face. "I'll definitely find you," Ding Yuan Xian said a stern voice. "Your treasures are all mine. Mine." Ling Han cultivated for a while in the Black Tower. These few days, he was either fighting or running, having no time to cultivate, but fighting was certainly the best method to improve. He found that his body was in a very special state, no matter spirit chi or origin power, both had an extremely good confluence. In this state, his cultivation's effectiveness could increase by tenfold. This was extremely surprising since he hadn't cultivated for 7 days, but only used 1 day to make up for it. Moreover, the effectiveness was better by 3 to 4 times. No wonder Sword Emperor, Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, and the others were so bellicose in his former lifetime. After advancing into the Flower Blossom tier, the spirit medicines that could improve cultivation were extremely rare, and origin crystals were also the same. Which deity transformation tier or heaven tier would be willing to refine large amounts of origin crystals for others to use? At most, they were refining 1 or 2 pieces for their juniors, mainly to help them comprehend martial intent. Thus, nurturing through battling was the best choice. After all, there was only one exceptional alchemy emperor in Ling Han's lifetime, and no one could copy his path. Ling Han nodded. It looked like he'd have to find some strong opponents to fight in the future. Of course, they couldn't be too strong, or else he'd die once coming to grips with them. Then what more would there be to do? Ling Han had long been unable to see through Hunyo's cultivation. Only after fighting her did he know that the little girl improved to the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, lower than him by a tiny bit, yet with her momentum surpassing him. It was like waving a whip behind Ling Han's back, supervising and urging him not to relax for a moment, or else Hunyo would surpass him. Being surpassed by a 5 to 6-year-old little girl would be quite embarrassing. Ling Han and Hunyo left the tower, and after walking for a while, they bumped into the campsite of a party. There were 10 tents in front, and it just happened to be mealtime. 13 people surrounded the campfire and ate. "Ha ha ha ha, guys, look, this youngster actually brought a little girl into the dark demon forest." Seeing the two of them, several of the people instantly began to make a fuss. Certainly, Hunyo was indeed too small. Being able to walk here, this youngster must be a piece of work. Someone saw through even more. "Isn't he just at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier?" Hiss, the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. A 7th layer spiritual ocean tier short of 20 years old was somewhat surprising. "Youngster, you've come for the heavenly lucky stone too, right?" "Hee hee, several flower blossom tier elites have already appeared. Even spiritual pedestal tyrannus have no right to speak, let alone a small spiritual ocean tier. Running around recklessly like you do will only bring the disaster of death to yourself," said an old man at the 7th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Ling Han responded with an "oh," and said smilingly, "Senior, why say such a thing? Could it be that the dark demon forest now doesn't allow others to enter?" "It certainly is so." The old man nodded. The heavenly luck stone's value is extremely high. Although it has no use for flower blossom tier and spiritual infant tier elites, for those martial artists below, it's extremely precious as it can create a genius. Currently, spiritual infant tier elites haven't appeared, but many flower blossom tier ones have already come. A small character like you wandering randomly might just be swatted to death by someone. "Youngster, join us Heavenly Silkworm Court just for these few days of work. It's 2 pieces of origin crystals each day. How about it?" Ling Han pretended to be shocked and said, "Senior, I'm only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. What use could I be? Encountering flower blossom tier elites, I'm absolutely no match." The heavenly luck stone's location has already been determined, but everyone is worried about the beast that guards it. No one will attack rashly lest it gives others an advantage. However, this impasse won't continue for long, since everyone would definitely first form an alliance to kill that beast. At that time, the alliance would naturally break, and the stronger the group, the higher the possibility of seizing the heavenly luck stone by them. Even spiritual ocean tier warriors are powers not to be neglected, the old man explained. Ling Han laughed. What powers not to be neglected? This only sounded nice, but it was simply taking them as cannon fodder. Seeing the killing intent deep within the old man's eyes, Ling Han knew that if he shook his head in rejection, the old man would definitely attempt to kill him. Although he was unafraid, why not play with them for now? When he found the location of the heavenly luck stone, he'd just fish in troubled waters. All right, he readily agreed. The old man also revealed a smile, smothering the killing intent instantly. Chapter 409, Golden Blood Demonic Ape. Chapter 409, Golden Blood Demonic Ape. Reverie _ This was a team of Heavenly Silkworm Court, but only that old man truly belonged to the Heavenly Silkworm Court. His name was Zuoyu Dao. The others were like Ling Han, recruited along the way. Needless to say, they were completely a cannon fodder party. If they encountered a great battle, they would simply be putting out their lives. Some had anxiety in their eyes, evidently seeing the truth, but others were filled with joy, earning 2 pieces of origin crystal per day. Where else would one find such a good job? However, if a great battle broke out between the large forces, the people here would probably all die. So why would the Heavenly Silkworm sect need to pay dead people origin crystal? Ling Han was calm and collected. He had the Black Tower in hand and was filled with confidence, having the thought of fishing in troubled waters. He and Hunyo were ringers. Seeing that they were just a youngster and a little girl, how could everyone else be on guard? After eating, the party headed southwest. With half a day's effort, a mountain valley appeared before them. A vast crowd was outside the valley, as if convening a general meeting. Ling Han's gaze swept by. He saw that the place was divided into circles of the many forces, each simply surrounding a small area of tents. Most of the forces also planted their flags. For example, Heavenly Silkworm Quartz was a purple-colored beast silkworm, Devour Bone Quartz was a skull, and Cold Water Sect was an ice river. The Cold Water Sect also came, huh? Ling Han smiled mischievously. When he was at the Fallen Moon Gorge, he annihilated one of Cold Water Sect's disciples. If he were to reveal his identity now, would the elites of the Cold Water Sect come and make him pay? If they met on a narrow path, then they might, but under the eyes of the crowd, who dared to lay their hands on an alchemist? Unless this alchemist did something that truly would cause the wrath of God and the resentment of men and gave rise to public indignation, they definitely had to consider the Leviathan that was the Alchemist Society. Besides, Ling Han was now an Earth-grade alchemist. Would they offend an Earth-grade alchemist deeply for a mere spiritual ocean tier disciple? Ling Han looked around. All the forces he knew came except one. The Blood Lighthouse. It was rumored that the original master of the Blood Lighthouse was defeated by a man who called himself Fist Emperor, yielding the position of House Master. The successor really had restraint, not even making a move for the Heavenly Luck Stone. Even if this thing wasn't used for oneself, throwing it to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and auctioning it off would definitely get a sky-high price. Ling Han was extremely low-key, hiding within the cannon fodder of the Heavenly Silkworm Court. He cultivated every day, fathoming the way of the sword and formations. All the paths of the heaven and world were interlinked, and he gained comprehension by analogy, forming the 8 flash of sword chi. Becoming aware of such benefits naturally made him full of confidence. Yao Huiyu was just 24 to 25, and yet he formed 9 flashes of sword, possibly even more, giving Ling Han immense pressure. The older generation had all arrived, and the youngsters on the prodigy roll could no longer garner attention. However, Zhu Xian'er was still like a bright moon and would set off a commotion no matter where she walked, always surrounded by countless people. Inside the mountain valley was the Heavenly Luck Stone, but inside the mountain cave, a beast kept watch and blocked the path. Till this day, no one dared to venture on. Because this beast was the Golden Blood Demonic Ape, a king amongst beasts. Being at the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, and a king amongst beasts determined the beast's amazing strength. Furthermore, the mentality of the beasts here was affected by chaos and Tintich, and everyone only knew of slaughter, making the Golden Blood Demonic Ape even scarier. Although there were quite a few Flower Blossom tier elites present, there weren't many that reached the 9th layer. Not to mention that even if 10 or even 20 of them joined hands, they might not even rival that demonic ape. Therefore, everyone was waiting. Fighting with such a vicious thing carried an extremely high chance of dying, so the more certain they were, the better. However, this wouldn't last for long, because the demonic chi influenced the minds of living creatures, driving people insane, something that no one wanted to happen to themselves. Now these powerful people were negotiating. Who would take the heavenly luck stone, and what benefits would the recipient take out to settle with the others? Moreover, the golden blood demonic ape was king tier, so its blood, flesh, skin, fur, and bones all had immense value. So how would that be distributed? These days were just about arguing back and forth, as if during an auction. Each force wanted to pay the smallest price to receive the greatest benefit, but once there were too many people, it naturally became an endless conference. However, after 2 days, the golden blood demonic ape initiated the attack. It was over 30 feet tall and fully covered in red fur that reached 2 feet, gently swaying under the mountain breeze. Its claws were appallingly long, each one reaching 3 feet, and as if a sharp spear, the gleaming look of it alone would scare people. This was beast of the king tier, as strong as the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, emitting an extremely terrifying presence that could rival the 1st layer of the spiritual infant tier. Even the lot of flower blossom tier elites didn't dare to easily start a battle. Pa, pa, pa. The people below flower blossom tier all went soft at the soles of their feet, almost falling to the ground. The presence of it was too terrifying. When Feng Yin took out a magical decree, it stunned all spiritual pedestal tier elites, and now this demonic ape had about the same strength. However, a few people were the exception, such as Zhu Xian and Shun Zhongcheng, and a few youngsters that Ling Han didn't recognize. They actually resisted the presence. These youngsters were kings amongst the humans. Although they were still young and immature, a young king was still a king. So how could they kneel or lower their heads towards another king? Lin Han didn't want to stand out and pulled on Hunyo to sit down on the ground. Everyone sat anyways, and there was no need to worry about people blocking their vision. Moreover, this demonic ape was over 30 feet tall. The target was way too obvious. Kill, kill. The demonic ape actually slobbered the words of man, its red eyes filled with ruthlessness as it immediately began its massacre. Waving its demonic claws, Shua, 5 flashes of momentous chi shot out, turning into a 30,000 feet long attacks. Pu, 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 pu. The momentous chi swept over, and those who lay, sat, or knelt on the ground were undoubtedly split into 2. Stop! With its one attack, these flower blossom tier elites could sit no longer and attack the ape one after another. There wasn't only cannon fodder here, but also their disciples, and if all of them died here, the loss would be too great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ling Han counted a total of 34 flower blossom tier warriors. Of those, 3 reached the 9th layer, 5 the 8th layer, 9 the 7th layer. Those below 7th layer actually held little significance. Against a king tier, they could at most impede it, and had no ability to fight it head-on at all. Just like Ling Han, even if 109th layer spiritual ocean tier elites came, wouldn't they all still be easily killed instantly? Hong, Hong, Hong. The great battle began, and although the demonic ape was fighting against the masses alone, it still had the initiative. As it waved its demonic claws, every claw lashed out with momentous chi, impossible to overcome, forcing these flower blossom tier elites to dodge all over the place. A king amongst beasts was truly powerful. Chapter 410, Not Foolish. Chapter 410, Not Foolish. Reverie _ The demonic ape waved its arms, sweeping out flashes of momentous chi filled with unstoppable destructive power unrestrainedly with its 10 fingers. At least it was almost invincible in the flower blossom tier. Chi. The flower blossom tier elites unleashed their spirit tools to parry, but even 6th tier spirit tools were left with graze marks. Seeing this, they gasped in astonishment. If the spirit tools were to be scratched by the demonic ape's claws, then wouldn't they be cut in half immediately? And if their bodies were scratched, would it be of use? Even if they used origin power to defend? As this thought arose, Even the ninth layer of the Flower Blossom tier elites didn't dare to directly oppose the ape's attacks and restrained it in the surroundings. With no one daring to take the vanguard, the demonic ape naturally came and went freely, displaying fully its vicious might. Although its physique was massive, its movements were extremely agile and deceitfully quick. Suddenly left, then suddenly right, suddenly in the front, then suddenly from the back. So strange that it disgusted Peeplight was completely like an agility-type beast. However, when the Flower Blossom tier elites really thought that it was an agility type, the demonic ape launched a violent assault, targeting only one person. That person was at the second layer of the Flower Blossom tier. His face turned green as his strength was so vastly different compared to the demonic ape. Everyone hurriedly tried to rescue him, but the demonic ape's physique was overbearing. The sword chi, saber chi, and the like unleashed by spirit tools couldn't harm it at all from this distance, not even able to cut off a single hair. There was no way to succeed like that, so they had to charge over one after another. The demonic ape targeted that Flower Blossom tier warrior anyways, which was equivalent to restraining it at the front. Thus they didn't fear close combat. Kill, kill. The demonic ape suddenly turned its head and attacked the crowd. Everyone knew that the dark demon forest was filled with a weird presence, and the longer one stayed, no matter beast or human, all would go crazy and bloodthirsty. It no doubt increased destructive power, but also affected intelligence. The honest saying that losing one's wit, the limit of battle power unleashed would be limited no matter how strong one was true. This was the main reason why the crowd dared to attack the demonic ape on all sides. But who would have thought that such a large group of people would be tricked by the demonic ape, diverting their attention and then unleashing its power? Was this really a vicious creature that only knew slaughter? Not good. The Flower Blossom tier elites' expressions turned green. Although they won in numbers, could they really block a king of beasts at the ninth layer of the Flower Blossom tier fighting head-on? After all, they only had 3 elites at the ninth layer of the Flower Blossom tier. At this moment, the 3 warriors at the ninth layer of the Flower Blossom tier were the first to retreat, then those at the 8th layer, and those at the 7th layer. The higher their tier, the more control they naturally had over their own power. The demonic ape let out an odd laugh. Pa, pa. Its arms spread out, easily capturing a Flower Blossom tier elite each. The 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier against the 5th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, and the ape was king tier. It was an obvious result. Why were their heads only filled with thoughts of running? Save me! Save me! The 2 Flower Blossom tier elites that were seized yelled loudly as they desperately struggled and spread their martial intent. On the surface of their bodies, endless vein-like lines spread out, covered by astonishing brilliance. Each vein-like line firing down would be enough to exterminate a field of spiritual pedestal tier warriors, but they just couldn't get free now from the demonic ape's control. The might of a king tier beast was fully displayed. Pa, pa. The demonic ape applied force in both hands, causing the 2 to explode. Hong. A terrifying power shock wave resonated through heaven and earth. A martial artist's cultivation was equivalent to taking oneself as a furnace, improving oneself. Especially after advancing into the Flower Blossom tier, the power contained inside the body was earth-shaking and extremely terrifying. Now that it was crushed, that terrifying power going out of control was naturally shocking. The demonic ape wasn't the least bit afraid and instead opened its mouth, throwing the 2 Flower Blossom tier warriors into its mouth, munching a few times, and swallowing them whole. Hiss! Seeing this, everyone drew a cold breath. Between humans and beasts, there was really just a relationship of devouring each other because both parties contained flesh that was of great benefit to the other, so eating back and forth was quite normal. However, standing in the position of the humans, seeing one of their own being eaten still had a great impact. Besides, those were 2 Flower Blossom tier elites. No matter which party they belonged to, it was an insufferable loss. After eating 2 Flower Blossom tier warriors, the demonic ape's red eyes were even brighter, just like 2 small suns. It stared at everyone again with earth-shaking killing intent. Ling Han shook his head inwardly. If human martial artists kept harboring their own intentions, then they would only be destroyed separately by the demonic ape. Moreover, the demonic ape was already at the peak stage of the flower blossom tier, and if it ate 10 more flower blossom tier martial artists, it might be able to advance. Chapter 411. Obtaining the Heavenly Luck Stone. Chapter 411. Obtaining the Heavenly Luck Stone. Reverie _ Xiao. A momentous chi came slicing from outside the valley, turning into extremely terrifying 1,000-feet-long sharp blades. Everyone was scared sick. The fierce chi was too long. It couldn't possibly be dodged going right or left, nor even up. It was unleashed by the demonic ape, and even if they weren't directly slashed, with their cultivation of spiritual pedestal tier and spiritual ocean tier, they would definitely burst into pieces when met with its frightening power. Dig a hole. Someone immediately attacked the ground crazily. There was a general saying of the shield of the earth hiding inside, the mud might be able to help them narrowly escape. Everyone followed suit, striking crazily at the ground. The people here were at least at the spiritual ocean tier, so smashing a hole was rather easy. In a moment, everyone turned into ground-burrowing rats, drilling into the mud holes. The fierce chi swept by. Pong, 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 pong. It raised dust from the ground as the frightening energy carried on until it sliced the mountain walls before disappearing. The mountain walls were exceptionally sturdy and weren't sliced entirely by the demonic ape's attack, leaving only a mark barely a foot deep, which was truly shocking. Everyone who was hiding in the mud holes were shocked. Each one of them burst out from the holes with blood all over them. The few who were too weak were even shocked into foaming with blood, but most of the people luckily escaped. For example, Zhu Xian, Ding Yuan Xian, and the others all looked towards Ling Han. The reminder just now came from him. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "No need for thanks." Although some people here were enemies, he didn't need to borrow the demonic ape's hands to kill people. Did he not even have that much confidence? Besides, some people were not bad, and it would be a pity for them to die here. Hurry up and leave. The rescued nodded at Ling Han whether they knew him or not, and ran out the mountain valley one after another. The demonic ape's attack spread and caused them to be heavily injured, and a few more times would definitely kill them. Moreover, the mountain walls were so stable, and they couldn't possibly dig through them with their power. So, there was only one way to acquire the Heavenly Luck Stone: kill the demonic ape. Fortunately, seeing their own remarkable juniors suffer an attack, the flower blossom tier elites outside the valley began to fight desperately, restraining the demonic ape and not letting it have another chance to unleash a killer move. Ling Han looked around. Seeing that most of the people in the valley had escaped, he then said to Hunyo, "Nyo, can you enter?" Hunyo was a freak. When others had no way, she might have. "Let Nyo try." Hunyo squatted at the cave entrance, opening her mouth and biting at it. With a snap, the cave entrance had resplendent vein-like lines revolving. Once touched, the power set by the demonic ape would automatically manifest. The little girl instead went crazy, biting left and right, eating up all the vein-like lines nearby. What the hell? Even if Ling Han knew Hunyo was out of the ordinary, freakishness to this degree still made the corner of his mouth twitch as he felt unable to accept it. That was a defense set by a 9th-layer flower blossom tier monster that was even a king amongst beasts, but it was still bit through by Hunyo. What sort of teeth did she have? After Hunyo bit open a small hole, she immediately wormed in and ran right off. She knew what Ling Han wanted, and in a short while, she ran back from within the cave, wormed out of the cave's entrance and dove into Ling Han's arms, handing over 9 pearl-like things. Immediately, an intense fragrance could be smelled, making all the pores on his body open up in ineffable comfort. The Heavenly Luck Stone? Ling Han hurriedly stored the 9 Heavenly Luck Stones into the Black Tower and picked up Hunyo, walking slowly towards the outside of the valley. Just now, he used his body as a screen, not letting anyone discover that Hunyo entered the mountain valley. Who would even think that Hunyo had such capabilities, even being able to bite through the defensive power set by a flower blossom tier? Now everyone had their attention on the battle in the sky. Once the demonic ape was killed, then they would naturally be able to enter the mountain cave and obtain the heavenly luck stone. Ling Han's heart was thumping rapidly. He knew that there were heavenly luck stone inside the mountain cave, but never would he have thought there were as many as 9. This meant that he could create 9 geniuses. One for him, one for Hu Niu, one for Ling Dongxing, one for Lu Yutong, one for Qin Yi. These 5 were the most important. As for Guang Yuan, Zhu Wujiu, and Li Xichan, their martial arts talents weren't outstanding. Giving it to them was somewhat of a waste. Whatever, one could only take 1 heavenly luck stone anyways. Any more would be useless, so whom else would he give it to? Using it on one's own people would be the best use of everything. That was decided. In a short while, he already made up his mind. As for how the remaining one would be used, that could be discussed in the future. Perhaps he'd take it out for auction and make a great profit. After he left the mountain valley, he saw Zhu Xian looking at him with a complicated and shocked gaze. Thinking about it, his reminder was what saved her life. But his contention with her for the crimson-red chilling ice grass must have made her have mixed feelings. Ling Han was only at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier before, and now he astonishingly advanced into the 7th layer. This progression was too scary. Ding Yuan Xian jumped out, filled with murderous intent. Ling Han laughed and said, "Just saved your life. Now you're returning kindness with hatred?" Ding Yuan Xian was startled as his gaze swept by. Many people in the surrounding were looking at him with an unfriendly look. He knew that he angered the crowd, so he snorted at once, took a few steps back, and said, "I'll let you go this time, but the next time we meet, I'll definitely have your head." Ling Han simply laughed. The next time they met, he would already have broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier, and it would be uncertain who would be the prey and who would be the predator. The battle in the sky was more and more disadvantageous to the humans. The demonic ape was too strong, and unlike the other beasts inside the forest, its intelligence wasn't affected, although it certainly was bloodthirsty and bellicose. Its destructive power increased while demerits were avoided. It was natural that its battle prowess improved. "Retreat! Everyone retreat!" A flower blossom tier elite shouted loudly. They were going to swallow the defeat in this battle. The plan now was to first retreat, then gather more elites. This time, even spiritual infant tier elites would be alerted. Ling Han didn't care, since the heavenly luck stones were already in his hands. Retreat? Then so be it. He was going to guard the crimson-red chilling ice grass. After he reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he would use the Black Tower's power boost to take away the spirit medicine. This way, he'd be able to avoid wasting the chance to improve his physique as well. Hold it! With a bellow, a figure arrived in a flash high up in the air, emitting a shocking presence of holding heaven and hell in awe. Flashes of vein-like lines blossomed around him like a bed of celestial flower sand, astounding sight. At the start, Ling Han thought it was Yao Huiyu, since only such a domineering youngster could unleash such a strong presence. However, as he focused his gaze, he could indistinctly see that this was a mature man in the 30s filled with a natural and forceful presence, like a natural-born monarch. Ling Han's mouth slowly dropped, revealing an astounded expression. This man was... Chapter 412, Rain Emperor Reappears. Chapter 412, Rain Emperor Reappears. Reverie _ Fist Emperor. Below, everyone cried out. That was the new housemaster of the Blood Lighthouse, the mysterious flower blossom tier elite that called himself Fist Emperor. No one knew where he came from, and yet he defeated the original Blood Lighthouse master with his extremely domineering fist techniques, becoming a leader of one of the 4 large forces. "Stand with me and kill this slaughterer." Fist Emperor made his move, brazenly unleashing attacks towards the demonic ape. "Humph! Overestimating your own abilities." A flower blossom tier warrior instantly snorted. Although this Fist Emperor was certainly kick-ass, he was actually only at the 1st layer of the flower blossom tier. How great of a difference was between the 1st layer and the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier. Moreover, the demonic ape was a king amongst beasts, and the higher the tier, the stronger a king. The demonic ape's battle prowess was at least 7 stars higher than a normal Flower Blossom tier warrior's. For what other reason could 3 warriors at the 9th layer and 5 at the 8th layer of the Flower Blossom tier fail to give it a run for its money? Besides, this demonic ape's defensive power was astounding. With so many people joining hands, not even a single hair was sliced off it. It seemed completely hopeless. So be it if he were at the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, but acting so loftily at the 1st layer of the Flower Blossom tier. Wasn't that just a joke? The demonic ape was obviously unafraid, waving its claws towards Fist Emperor. Pong! The fist and the claw clashed, and the martial intent collided fiercely. 2 balls of light burst forth and formed a great explosion, shooting in all directions. Pong! 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 Countless people in the surroundings were thrown off their feet. Those with weaker strength even hacked blood repeatedly, while the others were with disheveled hair, appearing very disorderly. Those Flower Blossom tier elites revealed expressions of disbelief. Each of them was shocked to the extreme. Fist Ray. How's it possible? In the sky, the demonic ape and Fist Emperor stood in the air, separated by 1,000 feet. Blood was at the corner of Fist Emperor's mouth and traces of blood were all over his body. But the demonic ape's claws also dripped with fresh blood. It finally sustained an injury in this battle. Of course, Fist Emperor's was injured more in comparison, but being able to injure the demonic ape greatly increased the morale of the masses. It turned out that the demonic ape wasn't invincible. Rain Emperor. Ling Han muttered this awe-inspiring Fist Emperor was Rain Emperor. As expected of the strongest ruler since the establishment of the Rain country, he certainly was extremely domineering. Moreover, circles of light rippled around his fist as if tangible. That was precisely Fist Ray condensed by Fist Chi, but its destructive power was countless times greater. This wasn't simply an accumulation, but a refinement on the way of the fist. Rain Emperor was past 60, and he originally looked around 50. Now, advancing into the Flower Blossom tier, he immediately gained 200 more years of life. In theory, he was equivalent to a normal 20-year-old, and all the functions of the body were greatly revitalized, such that even his complexion became younger. In a few more years, would Rain Emperor become a handsome man in the 20s? It was very much possible. As these thoughts flashed across Ling Han's mind, Rain Emperor already executed the Son of Heaven Fist technique, battling fiercely with the demonic ape. Rain Emperor had abdicated as a ruler and was not inside the Rain country, so he couldn't possibly use the power of the nation. However, he advanced into the Flower Blossom tier and broke away from the confinements of mortals, connecting his body with heaven and earth. Each fist that shot out had the blessing of heaven and earth, while Son of Heaven Fist technique was as fierce and domineering as ever. Genius, a true genius. Ling Han nodded. The Son of Heaven Fist technique was only a black grade or earth grade technique in the hands of Qi Yong Yi and the others, but in the hands of Rain Emperor, it was a heaven grade technique, even a god tier technique. This was a fist technique he created, and as long as he forged ahead vigorously on the path of the fist, his Son of Heaven Fist technique would continue to improve and keep up with his tier. Given the time, Rain Emperor really could be crowned the 2 words, Fist Emperor, living up to the name. With Rain Emperor taking the front, the courage of the other Flower Blossom tiers naturally increased greatly as they stepped forward to attack. They certainly didn't dare to fight the demonic ape head-on, but to restrain it from the sides was more than enough. Flower Blossom tier elites were Flower Blossom tier elites after all. Their strength couldn't be fabricated. Things took a turn on the field. Before, the demonic ape had the absolute advantage, but now, both parties were tied. Rain Emperor's dominance had to be acknowledged as he turned the battle around single-handedly. Even though this was all because of Rain Emperor was only at the 1st layer of the Flower Blossom tier. Fist Ray certainly was all-conquering, and Son of Heaven Fist technique increased explosively in power as his tier increased, but his tier being low was ultimately a great weakness. Rain Emperor continued to be injured by the demonic ape, and although he still fought hard, anyone could see that Rain Emperor couldn't endure for much longer. Once Rain Emperor was defeated, the situation would return to as it was before. In that moment, everyone's battle intent dropped drastically, beginning to consider retreat. Ha 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 ha, did I come late? With a long laughter, another extremely domineering figure appeared, covered with intertwining sword lights and emitting an overbearing presence. The world's second sword, Yao Huiyu. He was also at the first layer of the Flower Blossom tier, and at the same time a king amongst martial artists who formed at least 9 flashes of sword chi. Moreover, he was a bright disciple of Heaven's sword sect who knew what surprising trump cards he had. Come fight, Chong. Yao Huiyu's unsheathed his sword and charged unhesitatingly at the demonic ape. With a sword strike, he yelled, "Get out of my way. This is my opponent." This one was more arrogant than the one before. He actually wanted to fight the demonic ape alone. If he were at the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, then there was naturally hope. If Rain Emperor reached the 9th layer, he would also have the right to fight the demonic ape. But the problem was that the difference was too great for both their tiers. Neither one was the demonic ape's opponent, as the demonic ape was infinitely close to the spiritual infant tier. The demonic ape was infuriated. In its eyes, these humans were simply sheep, with at most a few wolves that could cause it some trouble, but wanting to defeat it, not in a million years. It let out a great roar as its body actually cracked. What? Did it kill itself from losing its mind to anger? Everyone very much hoped that this vicious creature would die this way, but that was obviously not realistic. Under their astounded gazes, the demonic ape started to crack open from the nape and all the way to the waist. However, no blood oozed out, and instead 2 demonic apes popped out. No, 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 not 2 entire demonic apes, only the upper half of the body. 3 heads and 6 arms. The 3 demonic apes roared angrily at the same time. The sound waves were like the tide, turning into massive waves that charged at everyone. The Flower Blossom tier elites hurriedly went up to neutralize it. Otherwise, if this tidal sound wave struck, all the spiritual pedestal tier warriors would explode from the shock. Pong, 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 pong. The sound waves were dissolved by the Flower Blossom tier elites jointly while Yao Huiyu raised his sword and charged at the demonic ape with an imposing manner. The demonic ape waved its arms, and with a pong, Yao Huiyu was sent flying. The demonic ape with 3 heads and 6 arms was truly like a spiritual infant tier elite, displaying its unparalleled position. Chapter 413. Chapter 413. Collapsed Mountain reveals demonic river. Reverie _ mystical power. Ling Han said inwardly, this was the golden blood demonic ape's innate mystical power. It was very strong. 3 heads and 6 arms with each upper body equivalent to a demonic ape. Its battle prowess was earth-shaking. One demonic ape could firmly suppress everyone, and now with 2 more, who could resist it? Haha, interesting. Interesting. Yao Huiyu's battle intent was like fire as he raised his sword and attacked back. His expression was filled with high-spirited battle intent. He seemed to be extremely excited. You have the right to make me attack seriously. His expression turned stern as Mysterious 3000 was activated. One sword light looked as if it could shine over the 5 regions. Rain Emperor also returned to the fray, throwing domineering punches continuously with earth-shaking momentum. With these 2 taking the front, the others stepped up one after another. Being able to cultivate to the Flower Blossom tier, who would be a fool? The demonic ape's 3-head and 6 arms ability might be astounding, but it couldn't possibly be activated endlessly. Furthermore, the ape would become weakened after unleashing an ultimate move like this. When the time came, they'd take the demonic ape's head. For Flower Blossom tier elites, the Heavenly Luck Stone was of no use at all, but the demonic ape was different in that it was king tier and the peak stage of the Flower Blossom tier. Its flesh was definitely very tonic. The demonic ape roared and waved its 6 arms. Its battle prowess was extremely frightening as it completely suppressed the crowd, but Yao Huiyu kept firing out the Mysterious 3000, posing a great threat to the demonic ape, while Rain Emperor who formed Fist Ray also had shocking destructive power. The 2 were riddled with wounds and kept hacking out blood, but they still stabilized the situation. Now the key was whether Yao Huiyu and Rain Emperor could endure longer, or the demonic ape's mystical power could be maintained longer. This would decide which side the victory would belong to. It was really hard to predict. No one knew how much longer the demonic ape's mystical power would remain active, but everyone could see Yao Huiyu and Rain Emperor's injuries. Those were definitely not light injuries. Being scratched by the demonic ape once, bones would be plain to see and blood splatter across the sky. Bleeding alone was a great problem. Ling Han watched and muttered inwardly, "These people are so desperate. If they really defeat the demonic ape and run into cave to see that the heavenly luck stones are gone, will they go crazy? This demonic ape might be wild and violent, but it's not stupid. Could this be due to the heavenly luck stone suppressing the chaos intent? It's rumored that heavenly luck stone is birthed by the fate of heaven and earth and is a manifestation of heaven and earth's will. It's not out of question for it to be able to resist demonic chi. Since I've taken away the heavenly luck stone, this demonic ape will definitely be mentally aberrated from the demonic chi. When the time comes, it'll just be another muddle-headed vicious creature that knows only slaughter." The great battle was still going on. Yao Huiyu and Rain Emperor were both strong-willed and battle maniacs. Fighting with a demonic ape that was a king amongst beasts would be of immense benefit in the future on their paths in martial arts. Therefore, they would rather fight desperately and be heavily injured and still continue the fight, believing that the gains would definitely be greater. However, the demonic ape quit. It wasn't stupid. Fighting desperately here had no benefit. Retreat. It immediately turned around and shot towards the mountain valley, worming right into it. "Not playing with you guys anymore." Rain Emperor and Yao Huiyu exclaimed, following it and entering the mountain cave. Seeing this, the other Flower Blossom tier warriors naturally didn't want to lag behind. Chasing and killing the demonic ape was secondary. The key was that the heavenly luck stone was inside. Pong, pong, pong. Entering the cave, everyone naturally couldn't see the combat situation and dared not enter to watch, as it would really kill them. They could only hear thunder-like sounds of bombardment, moving the earth and shaking the mountain as if the world was about to collapse. At least half an hour passed. The entire mountain was sent flying and crashed 5,000 feet away with a pong. Instantly, the strong impact shoveled up dirt as the ground from afar arched over 2 feet high and charged towards the mountain valley. For spiritual pedestal tier and spiritual ocean tier warriors, this impact was trifling. They only looked at it once and turned their gaze towards the inside of the mountain valley again. The entire mountain was sent flying, so it naturally left behind only a desolate land. However, the Flower Blossom tier elites rose into the air one after another as if running for their lives. The mountain disappeared and left a deep, massive pit. This pit was like a river filled with dense and indiffusible black mist that kept evolving into all sorts of shapes such as beasts, humans, and weapons. It was precisely this black mist that made the Flower Blossom tiers flee helter-skelter. Demonic chi. Ling Han was astounded at such dense demonic chi. Could a part of Azura Demon Emperor's body be suppressed underneath? Or was it a massive black stone? Facing this black chi, even the demonic ape feared it instinctively, escaping swiftly and not wanting to contact it at all. Who would have thought that underneath the heavenly luck stone was such a piece of demonic land? Could this be the source of Dark Demon Forest's demonic chi? Such terrifying demonic chi, even from this far, it makes me have the urge to go mad. Step back a bit more. If too much demonic chi enters the body, then one's mind will be completely chaotic, turning into a puppet that knows only slaughter. Everyone stepped back one after another. Losing the mountain that suppressed it, the demonic chi gushed out uncontrollably as if it were going to completely cover the entire Dark Demon Forest. Gagaga. Thanks everyone. A coarse voice sounded, followed by a grating sound. A bronze casket slid over as if it had feet. The Thousand Corpse Sect, someone immediately shouted, and everyone instantly got goosebumps. This sect was definitely detested by all, and everyone called for their beating. They were too shameless and immoral, stealing the corpses of elites to refine them into corpse soldiers. Did they still have any humanity? Elder Nine Clouds was also amongst the crowd, showing up to do nothing because once he attacked with full strength, he couldn't conceal his corpse chi at all. Moreover, the people of the Thousand Corpse sect were strong only with corpse soldiers. Their own battle prowess was actually quite normal. He couldn't help but be irritated. Which idiot was this within the sect, actually appearing in front of the world with such poise? Won't this bring hatred to the sect? Ling Han's expression changed slightly as he recognized this bronze casket. 3 Lives Corpse Casket, Ronghuan Xian. No, now it wasn't the true Ronghuan Xian, but Azura Demon Emperor. If it were the true Ronghuan Xian, he should desire for the heavenly luck stone and avoid demonic chi like plague. But now, with Azura Demon Emperor controlling his flesh, Ronghuan Xian was definitely charging at the demonic qi, going for the black stone. For others, demonic chi was poison that mustn't be contacted. However, for Azura Demon Emperor, that was a greatly tonic thing. If there truly were a massive black stone underneath that was obtained by Azura Demon Emperor, what sort of calamity would be caused? Ling Han didn't hesitate for a single second. He leapt right out, unleashed the Demon Birth Sword, and struck at 3 Lives Corpse Casket. Both were tier spirit tools, so it really couldn't be confronted without using the Demon Birth Sword. Hong! Sword chi landed and 3 Lives Corpse Casket was forced to stop as the sword chi shocked it, its rays blinding. You're actually still not dead? Pong! The lid of the casket opened and Ronghuan Xian's figure appeared. His gaze quickly caught Ling Han, emitting a frightening chill. This time, this lord will make you disappear completely. Chapter 414. Chapter 414, Primal Chaos Source Rock. Reverie _ Great. Now it was even livelier with all sorts of demons and beasts showing up. Dreg of Thousand Corpse Sect, how dare you to come here? You court death. A flower blossom tier elite attacked, swatting at Ronghuan Xian. Everyone had the right to execute a disciple of such an evil sect no matter how high or low. Even if Ronghuan Xian had the title of an alchemist, it would be the same. It could be inferred just how despised and resented the Thousand Corpse sect was. Even after a millennium, the sight of this sect still gave people the urge to kill. Gagaga, want to kill this lord? You're still 10 millennia too early. Ronghuan Xian laughed loudly, but he only paid lip service as he immediately wormed into 3 Lives Corpse Casket. His main body was certainly undying, but his flesh was too fragile, only at the 9th layer of the Gushing Spring tier. He couldn't possibly resist a Flower Blossom tier warrior's attacks. Wong, Wong, Wong. The attacks landed on the 3 Lives Corpse Casket, and instantly, this spirit tool was activated. Vein-like lines shined as if the entire casket was coming to life. Shwa, a pillar of light surged out and turned into a skeleton soldier with a pike in hand, thrusting towards the Flower Blossom tier elite. Pooh! With a spear thrust, the Flower Blossom tier's left shoulder was penetrated. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. That was a Flower Blossom tier warrior, but he couldn't even block an attack. If he hadn't evaded in time, his heart might have been shocked. It was too terrifying. What sort of treasure was that, being able to suppress even Flower Blossom tier opponents? However, some people looked towards Ling Han with strange gazes, because Ling Han also struck it once earlier. Why did nothing happen at all? The sword in the youngster's hand, could it actually be a high-tier spirit tool? Ling Han also gasped in surprise inwardly. Both were 10th tier spirit tools, but 3 Lives Corpse Casket was too kick-ass. Hiding inside the casket, one would not only have invincible defense, but also have thorns attached to oneself. Whoever hit it would be out of luck. More importantly, 3 Lives Corpse Casket could also move on its own like a carriage. It was very convenient. However, if Ling Han was made to hide in a casket, he definitely wouldn't do it. 3 Lives Corpse Casket. That's 3 Lives Corpse Casket. Elder Nine Cloud's eyes brightened up. Thousand Corpse Sect had 3 priceless treasures, which were the demonic noise saber, the pond of the underworld, and the 3 Lives Corpse Casket. However, the pond of the underworld wasn't a spirit tool, but an inherited land of Thousand Corpse Sect. It was also a holy place for cultivation. Cultivating inside for a year could equal 1 year on the outside, but its location was unknown since several millennia ago. Today, the demonic noise saber was grasped by the current sect master, followed by the appearance of the 3 lives corpse casket. It meant 2 out of 3 prized treasure appeared. Was appearance of the pond of the underworld still something distant? Was the 1,000 corpse sect going to prosper? Elder Nine Clouds was mad with excitement. If he could obtain the spirit tool that could accommodate living things from Ling Han, the 1,000 corpse sect could enter its golden age, even surpassing the dynasty several millennia ago. Ronghua Xin laughed eerily and said, "This lord won't play with you guys anymore. Once this lord obtains the primal chaos source stone and refines it as this lord's body, the entire world will tremble under this lord's clutches." Primal chaos source stone? Was it the black stone? The question flashed across Ling Han's mind as he attacked unhesitatingly once again. He definitely wouldn't allow a Jura Demon Emperor to obtain the black stone. The 1,000 corpse sect could still be suppressed no matter how strong they were, but a Jura Demon Emperor? That was a god spirit, and once his battle prowess fully recovered, the vast lands would face calamity. Insolent boy, when this lord's cultivation is recovered, this lord will kill you first. Ronghua Xin yelled angrily, steering the 3 lives corpse casket and charging into the demonic chi. No one dared to stop him as the misfortune of the flower blossom tier earlier was still in front of them, and no one wanted to share the same fate. Ling Han chased swiftly after, and Hunyo naturally charged into the demonic chi as well. The two instantly disappeared from everyone's sight. The demonic chi was not only dense enough to block vision, but also had a strong effect of cutting off divine sense. Consequently, even flower blossom tears immediately lost the trace of the 3 people. At this moment, everyone only thought of 2 words: damned idiot. That was demonic chi. Couldn't it be seen that even flower blossom tier elites weren't willing to be contaminated? What were a few small spiritual ocean tier and gushing spring tier warriors trying to do by running into it? The flower blossom tiers carried out a fierce battle again, unleashing their attacks at the demonic ape. These were separate matters. Boy, don't think that this lord will fear you just because your tier is higher than this lord's. Ronghua Xin's voice came from within the casket. He was only at the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier and couldn't possibly rival Ling Han. When this lord refines some primal chaos demonic chi and increases in cultivation, retrieving the primal chaos source rock, your life will be taken as blood sacrifice for this lord's rebirth. Oh, that primal chaos source rock, or whatever can make you stronger? Ling Han said indifferently. Ronghua Xin snorted and said, "This lord transformed from a sliver of the world's primal chaos demonic chi and suffered for not having flesh, which was why this lord was suppressed for several millennia and split into 9 parts. However, primal chaos source rock and this lord are of the same source as one of the world's toughest matter. This lord only has to refine it into a body. Who in the world would be able to rival this lord then? Haha, when the time comes, this lord's flesh will be invincible, equipped with overwhelming demonic psychic powers. All will become this lord's slaves." This old monster was so honest all of a sudden, even revealing his trump card. Thinking again, he actually didn't reveal any secrets, saying only where he came from but not how to annihilate him. No wonder that several millennia ago, his body could only be dismembered then suppressed. He wasn't a living thing in the true sense, but rather a manifestation of demonic chi. Ronghua Xin didn't simply boast, as he was in the process of absorbing the demonic chi. Wong, the presence he emitted was strengthening. Although it was still at the gushing spring tier, it could clearly be sensed that his tier was improving extremely quickly. Ling Han sighed. Why did he always encounter monsters? Ideas flashed across his mind. With the protection of the 3 lives corpse casket, he definitely wouldn't be able to stop Ronghua Xin's tier increase. However, where did the demonic chi in this land come from? There was definitely a black stone that released the demonic chi, but it was suppressed by the large mountain and could only spread through the ground into the forest. Now, it was as if it turned into an ocean. If he retrieved the black stone, or the primal chaos source rock in Ronghua Xin's words, then everything could be taken care of. Ling Han decided on spot and pulled on Hu Niu to leave, beginning to search for the land where the demonic qi originated. He asked Small Tower about primal chaos source rock and demonic qi. Small Tower unexpectedly knew the relationship between the two, telling him several secrets. If Azura Demon Emperor really absorbed the primal chaos source rock, then he at least wouldn't be killed on those vast lands, as primal chaos source rock was too hard. However, this didn't seem to make a difference. Azura Demon Emperor was originally a ball of demonic qi, but couldn't he still cause disasters for millennia even after being split into 9 parts? Demonic qi was like the vast ocean. Ling Han's divine sense couldn't be spread out, and black spots already began to appear on his body. The divine sense was the same, no longer clear as water, but instead filled with violent impulses. In contrast, Hu Niu was perfectly fine, but an indistinct light appeared in her dantian, as if a vein-like pattern had been lit up. The little girl was much more freakish than he was. He flashed into the Black Tower and immediately summoned the power of the Black Tower to dispel the demonic qi in his body. His skin returned quickly to normal at a visible speed, and his divine sense opened up, clear and immaculate. Ling Han exited the Black Tower again. With the experience of resisting the Black Stone, he could survive for several minutes even within such dense demonic qi. Niu, let's race to see who can find a rock like this. Ling Han smiled at Hu Niu as he dangled a small black stone in his hand. Okay, Hu Niu immediately said in a crisp voice, appearing very excited as she shot out. If Niu wins, Niu wants to eat 3 roasted chicken drumsticks. Chapter 415, Merging of the Demonic Body. Chapter 415, Merging of the Demonic Body. Reverie _ Ling Han and Hu Niu went on a great search, but this large area was covered by demonic qi and obstructed eyesight and divine sense, largely affecting their scouting ability. Even Hu Niu was no exception. For 3 consecutive days, they obtained no results. This was the area of a mountain. Even if it wasn't large, it wouldn't be small either. Rong Huanxian's strength was increasing rapidly. He obtained the inheritance of the 1,000 Corpse sect and could only cultivate corpse qi, but an old monster entered his body, granting him the ability to cultivate demonic qi. Under the endless devouring, it was almost 1 day for 1 layer. Rong Huanxian broke through to the spiritual ocean tier after 2 days, and today he was already at the 2nd layer of the spiritual ocean tier, a shocking progress. At this rate, another 7 days, and he would reach the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and then 2 more days and he would be at the spiritual pedestal tier. Once he entered the spiritual pedestal tier, with the mystic arts Azura Demon Emperor grasped on top of 3 lives corpse casket, he would possess sufficient confidence to suppress Ling Han. And after another 10 days, 20 days, and 30 days, what cultivation would Rong Huanxian reach? It just so happened that under the 3 lives corpse casket's protection, Rong Huanxian was also as if he possessed the Black Tower. No one could harm him, at least. Ling Han currently couldn't. He had to find the black stone fast. While Rong Huanxian was only absorbing the drifting demonic qi, he still could advance so shockingly fast. Then, if he truly refined the black stone as his body, just how strong would he be? Ling Han and Hu Niu continued to search, and as each day passed, they became more and more pressured. Ling Han had already stopped caring about the battle outside. If the demonic ape didn't run, it would definitely be annihilated. After all, the human elites rushed over continuously, so what if the demonic ape was a beast king? On the 11th day, Rong Huanxian broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Such speed would make anyone envious. Gagaga, this lord has come to find you. Rong Huanxian's grim laughter sounded within the demonic qi. So fast, he had no need to increase his tier to the height of the flower blossom tier or the spiritual infant tier, because he would soon abandon this Bedino living creature's flesh was truly suitable carrier for his soul. Only the primal chaos source rock was the best. Therefore, he only needed enough strength to suppress Ling Han, taking down that brat and obtaining the mysterious spirit tool which kept even him preoccupied. Inside the demonic qi, his battle prowess received a surprising amplification, so the spiritual pedestal tier was definitely enough. On the other hand, he He was truly scared that Ling Han would find the primal chaos source rock, ruining his opportunity. Ling Han bellowed, notifying Hun Yo to meet up with him in case she encountered Rong Huanxian and suffered a loss. On this land demonic qi pervaded. His and Hun Yo's senses were greatly restricted, especially Hun Yo's. Her forte was speed, but when she couldn't even see clearly, blindly running around would get her into a mishap. "Old devil, come battle with this young grandpa." Ling Han laughed loudly. He seemed young, but his soul was from millennia ago. He felt somewhat like an old man faced with anyone here. He didn't need to pretend to be immature only in front of a Jura demon emperor, as he certainly was much younger. "Stubborn brat, when this lord overran the world, your oldest ancestors were drinking milk somewhere. How dare you act insolently in front of this lord? Today, this lord will annihilate you completely. This lord is very interested in that treasure you bear." Rong Huanxian sneered. "Why so much useless talk? Just bring it on." Ling Han retreated in a rush. He had no interest in fighting Rong Huanxian, as the latter had the 3 lives corpse casket and was unkillable just like him. Finding the black stone was the kingly way. Rong Huanxian flew over, sticking out his right hand and clenching it. The demonic qi in this space danced wildly, turning into a giant hand that snatched at Ling Han. Gagaga, unexpected, right? This lord originally manifested from primal chaos demonic qi, and my battle prowess here can increase tenfold. Let's see where you'll hide. Rong Huanxian laughed loudly. Not necessarily. Ling Han's figure flashed, unleashing a punch and activating the thunder battle armor. Instantly, lightning surged and turned into an 8-headed war elephant, greeting the Black Hand. Hong! The lightning war elephant charging at the Black Hand was as if a mantis trying to stop a chariot, shattering its own body, yet not even able to slow down the Black Hand by single bit. As expected, Rong Huanxian said that his battle prowess here could increase tenfold, and that definitely wasn't a bluff. Die for this lord. Rong Huanxian clenched his right hand. The Black Hand also clenched tightly, devouring Ling Han's figure. However, Rong Huanxian immediately frowned because he felt Ling Han had already disappeared. The attack didn't grasp Ling Han. As expected, when the Black Hand disappeared, Ling Han also appeared unscathed. "Old devil, although you shrunk into a turtle shell in the past few days, I couldn't do anything about you. However, if you want to hurt me, that's also a pipe dream." Ling Han laughed loudly. Rong Huanxian's gaze was chilly and his expression filled with anger, but he knew Ling Han was right. The two of them certainly couldn't deal with the other. He felt a fit of irritation inside, but didn't care too much as he already realized that inside Devil Sky Mystery Realm. Then the next best thing was to find the primal chaos source rock and refine it as his body and then suppress Ling Han, seizing the treasure on the ladder. Line Han, Nyo found the large rock. Nyo's one. Hun Yo's cheerful voice resounded as a black stone the size of a buffalo ran over with 2 tiny feet on the bottom. This scene was somewhat strange. It was mainly because Hun Yo was too small while carrying the rock. Only her 2 feet could be seen. Gagaga, you specially delivered the primal chaos source rock for this lord. Thanks so much. Rong Huanxian exulted. He no longer paid attention to Ling Han, snatching at the black stone with a palm. Once he touched the black stone, he would transform into his true body and enter it, abandoning the current human shell. When he completely refined the primal chaos source rock as his own body and found the other 8 suppressed remnant souls, would he even need to fear Heaven's sword sect in its former years? This is Ling Han's, not for you. Hun Yo yelled, dissatisfied. Xiao, the black stone vanished into thin air, and Rong Huanxian's palm snatched nothing. He hurriedly turned his head, only to see that Hun Yo carried the rock and appeared before Ling Han. Teleportation. The little girl actually used the art of teleportation. Rong Huanxian was somewhat dumbfounded as teleportation involved the great Tao of space, and even in his world, only a few could master it. However, a little girl of the mortal world could use it with ease whilst carrying such a large primal chaos source rock. It made even him feel it beyond comprehension. Moreover, He also just noticed why could Hunyo also be unafraid of the effects of demonic qi? Nyo, good one. Ling Han guffawed, picking up Hunyo in one scoop, ready to put this little girl inside the Black Tower at any time. No, that belongs to this lord. Ronghuan Xian hurriedly dove over. Seeing the black stone inches before him, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Primal Chaos Source Rock as a body was a dream of his kind. Touched it. Azura Demon Emperor unhesitatingly removed his soul from Ronghuan Xian's body and wormed into the black stone. Chapter 416, Terribly Conned. Chapter 416, Terribly Conned. Haha. Ling Han laughed loudly. With a casual toss of his hand, the black rock inside his grasp was immediately thrown out. No! The Azura Demon Emperor roared in fury. He had indeed possessed the Primal Chaos Source Rock, but the problem was this piece of Primal Chaos Source Rock was much too small. It was actually the size of a peanut, and there was only a pitifully small amount of Chaos Source within. When members of his race took over the bodies of other living things, they indeed paid no mind to the build of their victims. It could be as small as the golden mosquito ant or as big as the howling heaven beast, and they could adapt anyways. Moreover, even if they were not satisfied, then they could always change to a new body. At worst, they would only experience a period of weakness. But the Primal Chaos Source Rock was different. Once fused, this was an irreversible process. He could never come back out. If the Primal Chaos Source Rock was big enough and possessed sufficient Chaos Source, this would give them unlimited space to expand. They would be able to swallow all the souls in this world and fuse with them. They would then be able to endlessly increase their personal power until it reached the maximum amount the Primal Chaos Source Rock could allow. Which also meant that the bigger the Primal Chaos Source Rock was, the more Chaos Source it contained, and thus the bigger his potential to become stronger. But the problem was not that the Primal Chaos Source Rock was too big, but that it was too small, much too small. It was so small that it could only accommodate a shattered piece of his soul. Moreover, there was only a scrap of Chaos Source inside, and he could not possibly increase his power with that. What did that mean? It meant that his power would eternally stagnate on this level, and he might not even be able to reabsorb the other 8 pieces of his soul. Of course, there was still a way to solve this matter, and that was for this piece of his soul would be swallowed. How could this be? The Primal Chaos Source Rock he had seen was definitely not as small as this. Ling Han laughed quietly. The instant that he was knocked down by the Azura Demon Emperor, he drew the large black rock into the Black Tower, then withdrew the small black rock and shoved it at the former. Furthermore, the Chaos Source in this small black rock had been largely sucked out by Small Tower, so there was only a slight sliver remaining. Sure enough, the Azura Demon Emperor did not even pause to think, overwhelmed by his anxiety. The moment he sensed the aura of the black rock, he immediately streamed inside. Small Tower had told him of the relationship between Primal Chaos Demonic Qi and Primal Chaos Source Rock. Thus, he came up with this plan in that single instant and managed to successfully dupe the Azura Demon Emperor. That small black rock actually began to shake, trying its best to transform into human form. Ling Han rushed forward and delivered a kick. Old demon, I'll see you next time. The pitiful Azura Demon Emperor was in the process of fusing with the Primal Chaos Source Rock. Since the two of them came from the same source, this process, once begun, was unstoppable. So how could he possibly be capable of defending himself? He instantly flew off into distance from the force of the kick. You damn human boy, just wait, I will definitely kill you. Azura Demon Emperor roared in fury. He had been horribly conned. I finally vented my grudge. Ling Han laughed loudly. Now, the Azura Demon Emperor only possessed 1/9 of the power he possessed at his strongest at most. Even if he possessed an immortal body, he could still be suppressed, and it would be much easier to deal with him in this way. And now that the Primal Chaos Source Rock had been removed, the demonic qi in this place would slowly disperse until it became nothing. By that time, this dark devil forest would be history. Phew, he was in a good mood. Ling Han laughed. Being able to ruthlessly con an old demon and immortal monster from millennia past caused a sense of fulfillment to spring up unbidden. There was only one word for it: invigorating. N. He heard moaning and saw that Rong Huanxian was actually getting to his feet staggeringly. Fuck, this guy was still alive? Ling Han knew that his body had not died before, but being taken over by the Azura Demon Emperor, his consciousness was actually not erased? When had the Azura Demon Emperor become so kind? You never thought that I would be still alive, right? Rong Huanxian stared fixatedly at Ling Han. He had never been on good terms with Ling Han from the moment they met. This Rong Huanxian was the original Rong Huanxian, and also the real Rong Huanxian. Ling Han sighed and said, "Sure enough, good people don't live long, whereas evil survives 1,000 years. He's still not dead even with that. Ha 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 ha, I refine corpse chi, so I won't die so easily." Rong Huanxian stared at Ling Han and said with a cold smirk, "I not only did not die. Furthermore, my power is superior to yours. AI, my previous good mood has now been ruined." Ling Han shook his head. "If we're being honest here, I am your savior at the very least. Is this how you are going to repay me? I will refine you into a corpse soldier and allow you to exist forever. That'll be good enough, right?" Rong Huanxian laughed loudly and took the initiative to attack. A smile appeared at the corners of Ling Han's lips as he said, "It seems that you are being smug too soon." He advanced to parry the oncoming attack, without any signs of fear. Pong! The two attacks collided and Rong Huanxian was forced into a continuous retreat. A flush appeared on his pale face, as if he had dabbed blusher on his cheeks. How could this happen? Rong Huanxian exclaimed in shock. He actually lost to Ling Han in a clash of force. "Let me kindly explain it to you." Ling Han smiled slightly. "You managed to enter the spiritual pedestal tier because of the demonic chi, but it was the Azura Demon Emperor who was guiding things. You yourself do not cultivate demonic chi, so how could you possibly make full use of that kind of power? Moreover, you are only in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and without the demonic chi in this place compounding with your own ability, I will be able to suppress you 17 or 18 times with one arm." Rong Huanxian fumed angrily. A brat in the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier actually pointed at his nose and said that he was just in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. How could that still be logical? However, there was one thing that Ling Han was right about, and that was none of the members of the Thousand Corpse sect was known for their own personal ability, but rather depended on their corpse soldiers. He now had no corpse soldiers to help him, so he was only an ordinary cultivator of the spiritual pedestal tier. Furthermore, he was a cultivator that had just broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Putting Ling Han aside, even Shan Zhongcheng would be able to kill him. Now that I've regained my body, I will begin to cultivate corpse chi again. When I obtain powerful corpse soldier, I will come to seek you again. Rong Huanxian left behind a line that fit the situation and jumped into the 3 live corpse caskets. Hong, the spirit tool activated and fled. Since he could not beat his foe, then he of course had to flee. Or what? Staying for supper? I temporarily suppressed a problem, but I've also gotten a new problem. I don't know if this is right or wrong, Ling Han mumbled. He had now split Rong Huanxian into 2. Though the ability of the Azura Demon Emperor was under control now, he had transformed into a real undying body, whereas Rong Huanxian was revived. With the protection of the 3 live corpse caskets, he, too, possessed an undying body. The so-called undying body is only relative. Ling Han soon smiled confidently. As long as my power is strong to a certain extent, even if Rong Huanxian hid himself in the 3 live corpse caskets, I would still be able to kill him with a shock wave. As for the primal chaos source rock, if this thing was really indestructible, how could it have been shattered in the first place? The small black rock from inside the brain of the giant serpent had most likely fallen off from the big black rock. This meant that the primal chaos source rock could be shattered. I've already obtained the primal chaos source rock and the heavenly luck stone. Now I only need to get the crimson red chilling ice grass, and this trip to the dark devil forest will be over. Not just over merely the heavenly luck stone had made this trip more than worth it. Furthermore, though Ling Han could not use the primal chaos source rock, its value was estimated to be hundredfold, thousandfold, or even millionfold the value of the heavenly luck stone. One had to understand that this was an item that could be useful to the Black Tower. Ling Han planned to leave behind a small piece to improve his divine sense. The rest would be refined by the Black Tower, which would extract the source power inside to repair itself. The two of them advanced in the opposite direction of the valley. He did not want to encounter anyone else at this time. He only wanted to quietly collect the crimson-red chilling ice grass, then return to Extreme Yang City. When he obtained the last ingredient, the 9-leaf black Anaderma, he would finally be able to concoct the Restore Spirit Pill. Chapter 417. Finding a Sparring Partner. Chapter 417. Finding a Sparring Partner. Ling Han kept only a small piece of black rock, whereas he passed the rest over to Small Tower to use to repair the ladder. In an instant, the whole black rock was turned to dust, and the chaos source inside was completely extracted by Small Tower. He could not help but think that if Azura Demon Emperor entered the Black Tower, then even if he obtained a humongous piece of the primal chaos source rock and made it into his body, it would be pointless as it would still be absorbed completely and turned to dust. Ling Han did not immediately head to where the crimson-red chilling ice grass was. He was still in the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier now, so he had to wait some more. He decided to head there after he broke through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Even if he went there now, he could only sit and wait, and this did not fit Ling Han's personality. As a result, he and Hunyo stollied around the forest. There were still a lot of other spiritual herbs here, and since they still had time, why shouldn't they go and find some? Their harvest was quite good, but after a few more days, the majority of the demonic chi here had dispersed and more people surged into this area. Thus, Ling Han's yield also went on decline. He rubbed his chin and ultimately decided that he could not waste any more time. Thus, he carved on the trunk of a tree, "Ding ergo one, come and chase your young master." These words were naturally left for Ding Yuan Xian. He still wanted to make use of the ladder to improve himself, breaking through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier as soon as possible with the man's help. As he moved, he kept carving those words here and there. He believed that with Ding Yuan Xian's ability, the latter should be able to find him from the clues he had left behind. Hunyo followed his example and began carving on the tree trunks as well. However, don't look at how pretty and delicate she was. The letters she carved were all bent and misshapen, but she still proudly crouched down and carved happily, completely unembarrassed about her poor writing. Only a day passed, and true enough, Ding Yuan Xian had caught up. "I cannot deny it. You are indeed very courageous," Ding Yuan Xian said icily, flames of rage burning in his eyes. This young man killed his younger brother, and now still dared to actively provoke him. He was really about to die from his towering rage. "I'm just average, but the second bravest in this world," Ling Han smiled. "Average, but number 1 in the world," Hunyo said without any modesty, patting her tiny chest. "You too," Ding Yuan Xian roared in fury. His figure pounced in attack towards Ling Han and Hunyo. His spiritual pedestal shone, surrounding him and making him appear as if he himself was a god. Ling Han laughed loudly and drew his sword to attack. Instantly, 8 flashes of sword chi shot out. When he saw this, Ding Yuan Xian was naturally infuriated. This guy only managed to gain his 8th flash of sword chi because of the pressure he had put on him. When he thought of that fact, he felt as if he was burning in flames of fury. Could it be that now that this brat had had a taste of success and once again took him to be a polishing stone for his own power? However, he stared fixatedly at the demon birth sword. Previously, he only knew that this was a high-level spirit tool, which gave him a shock that caused his spirit to throb. Yet afterwards, when he saw that this sword was actually capable of causing the 3 lives corpse caskets to vibrate, he as well as everyone else present of course knew that the demon birth sword was definitely not something as ordinary as a level 6 or even a level 7 spirit tool. Who would not covet it? "This sword is now mine," he humphed coldly, moving as quick as lightning. Ling Han tried his utter best and launched a counterattack at Ding Yuan Xian. However, there was too much of a gap between their respective cultivation levels. As a result, Ling Han was very soon riddled with wounds. One could even see the white of bones from some of the deeper wounds. Thankfully, the indestructible Heaven Scroll was too mighty and allowed him to maintain his life force at a shocking state of vigor. It was only when he bled so much that even his sight was beginning to blur that Ling Han finally began to flee. As he fled, he kept drawing out ginseng and other nutritious medicines and devoured them like crazy. He also used the indestructible Heaven Scroll to recover his own injuries. As he retreated, he continued to battle. He was not fleeing because he was losing. He tried his absolute best in this battle, but after 3 days, he had still reached his limit and had no choice but to duck into the Black Tower. At this point, there was no single patch of unscathed skin on his body. Even with the circulation of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, the rate at which he suffered injuries far exceeded the rate at which he could heal himself, which forced him to have 1 foot past the boundary of death. He quickly circulated a drop of the indestructible true fluid to recover. Very quickly, he regrew blood and flesh and had completely recovered from his previous state. After swallowing a few alchemical pills that were used for cultivation, he crushed a few hundred origin crystals. Instantly, an endless amount of origin power enveloped him. He greedily absorbed it, and his cultivation gradually increased. He actually cultivated for 2 whole days and nights, and when he ended his cultivation, he had already quietly broken through to the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Very good. This sparring partner is not bad. Perhaps, after 1 more month, I not only will be able to break through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but even rush up to the peak period of the 9th layer. Ling Han mumbled, unafraid how depressed and frustrated these words would make Ding Yuan Xian if he heard them. Let's go and find my sparring partner. Ling Han continued to leave messages behind, whereas Hunyo helped to leave messages as well, giggling while damaging this area of the forest with her hideous writing. Another 2 days passed, and Ding Yuan Xian had indeed caught up with them again. 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Ding Yuan Xian gasped in shock when he swept his eyes over Ling Han, his eyeballs practically popping out of his head. He was frustrated. This brat had really taken him to be a sparring partner. Not only had he formed his 8th flash of sword chi from the constant battles, now he had even broken through to the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If he continued to battle with this brat, then wouldn't the latter be able to advance towards the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at a terrifying rate, or even directly break through to the spiritual pedestal tier? He was really a bit scared now. Ling Han's battle prowess was too monstrous. Perhaps, once he entered the spiritual pedestal tier, Ling Han would be able to rival him. How could he bear with the fact that he himself had cultivated an opponent that could kill him? But this brat killed his younger brother, so how could he spare him? Kill. He definitely had to kill him. At least for now, this brat's ability was far beneath his. Ding Yuan Xian did not know that Ling Han still had the Black Tower and possessed a final trump card to ensure his survival in fatal danger. Otherwise, he would definitely turn around and leave immediately. It was just like battling Ronghuan Xian. He could always duck and hide himself into the 3 lives corpse caskets, and if someone in the flower blossom tier at least delivered a palm strike to this spirit tool, he could still kill himself with the strike. Do you dare to battle me to the death? Ding Yuan Xian provoked him. Is there something wrong with your head? I'm only in the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and you are in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and you want me to battle you to the death? Idiot. Ling Han shook his head, yet took the initiative to attack. The demonal birth sword was drawn and sword chi shot forwards like rainbows. Just obediently be my sparring partner. Damn you. Ding Yuan Xian was unbelievably furious and stepped forward to counter Ling Han's attack. Previously, there were a few times that he had nearly managed to kill Ling Han. Thus, he was still quite confident in himself. If Ling Han was just that slightest bit unlucky, then he would definitely be able to kill the former. Unfortunately, he was always just that slightest bit away from killing Ling Han. After battling for 3 days, Ling Han once again entered the Black Tower in a near-death state. After circulating a drop of the indestructible true fluid, he directly passed out. When he woke up, he hurriedly began to cultivate. His improvement could obviously be seen. He had reached the middle period of the 8th layer, and what was even harder to come by was the fact that because he was so very near to death this time round, this gave him a deeper understanding about life and death. Life and death, they were opposites, but the end of life was death, and the end of death was life. It was an endless loop, like Taiji 2. This conformed to the Tao of the world, which was Tao begets 1, and 1 begets 2. Order and chaos, life and death, light and darkness. These opposites and cycles could be traced back to the source. However, Ling Han's current cultivation level was too low. He could only be moved, but was not able to comprehend. He allocated these stirred-up thoughts on the path of the sword, clear which path he wanted to follow. Sword Chi, Sword Ray, anyone could form these two states. But Sword Heart was different. This was a kind of higher level, which required one to possess his own path. In his last life, the path that the Sword Emperor took was the path of rulers. The moment he drew his sword, the whole world would crawl before him. The setting sun Saber Emperor had taken the path of heartlessness. He could cut down without any bit of hesitation even the source of all life, the sun. Then what kind of path should he take? Chapter 418, Path of the Strongest. Chapter 418, Path of the Strongest. It was definitely not too early to consider this question. He would very soon break through to the spiritual pedestal tier, and after he constructed his spiritual pedestal, he would be able to step into the flower blossom tier, whereupon he would then cast off his mortality. And at that time, cultivators would have really stepped onto the path to search for Tao. Therefore, there was a need for him to confirm which path he wanted to take before he reached the flower blossom tier. In his last life, in accordance with the nature of his spirit base, he chose the path of fire. He studied the might of fire and advanced on this path towards the source. This kind of path that used one of the 5 elements or lightning, such basic elements, was also the choice that the majority of cultivators would make. However, the most common, most widely chosen path was usually not the strongest choice to make. Otherwise, the Sword Emperor, the setting sun Saber Emperor, and the likes had chosen to walk completely different paths. In this lifetime, Ling Han was to pursue becoming the strongest, and naturally could not possibly walk the path that he had once taken before. Even if having walked this path once would allow him to walk smoothly and unhindered all the way to the top, he wanted to switch to a different path, a path that would allow him to become even stronger. I want to battle with all possible opponents. Whoever blocks my advance, I will defeat. I do not want to become a ruler standing at the highest position to be revered by all. This is not something I am willing to become. What I pursue is merely to be the strongest. The extreme strongest that is capable of defeating any kind of opponent. The path of the strongest. Ling Han rubbed his chin. But the problem was, did such a path exist? I have to believe in myself. Since there is this kind of belief, then there must be this kind of path. My sword will be able to cut all. It will be able to cut spirit tools, divine tools, even capable of shattering the void or cutting even gods. Ling Han's will was determined. He had confirmed it. The path he wanted was to take the path of the strongest, and his sword was the path of the strongest. At the moment, he still needed to use spirit tools, but when he formed the strongest sword within his heart, he could form the strongest sword that could cut all with a single flick of his finger. After confirming the path that he wanted to take, Ling Han's will became increasingly determined. It was as if he had obtained a new life. Streams of divine light flickered around him, making for a shocking scene. However, he soon withdrew his martial intent and returned to looking absolutely ordinary. He was closer and closer to returning to his true self. It was as if he was a peerless, treasured sword that was still concealed within its sheath. Only when drawn would he release 100,000 feet of luster that could cut everything. I feel like I've touched the doorstep to the 9th flash of Sword Chi. Ling Han smiled. He had just decided on his future path, and it actually caused his spirit to brighten and allowed him to gain a great advance on the path of the sword. Now should be the time for sparring partner Ding to appear and give me enough pressure and motivation for me to polish out the 9th flash of sword chi. Ling Han exited the Black Tower and continued to leave provoking messages behind. This time was even faster. After merely half a day, Ding Yuan Xian had caught up. "You are too arrogant," Ding Yuan Xian said through gritted teeth. He had almost killed this brat last time, but not 2 days had passed, and he had again appeared all lively and active to pick a fight with him. This was practically being without any fear of death. "You're a good person," Ling Han smiled. Nyo thinks you're a good person too." Hu Nyo nodded. Ding Yuan Xian was almost driven mad with fury. These two really took him to be their sparring partner? His eyes focused on Hu Nyo. He did not manage to kill Ling Han after so many clashes, but this little girl should not be so difficult to kill, right? Since Ling Han had killed his younger brother, then he would also kill one of Ling Han's family and make him experience the feeling of heartache as well. Die! He leaped forwards and charged to attack Hu Nyo. "Your opponent is Ling Han, not Nyo." Hu Nyo used her movement technique and instantly disappeared like a shooting star. Her speed was so fast that Ding Yuan Xian could only watch in dumbstruck shock. Fuck, this was a little monster. Ding Yuan Xian was astonished. Ling Han was also very monstrous, but at least his monstrosity was still within an acceptable range. But that the little snip was actually so fast that even he could not catch her movements? That was too much. "Ding ergo, you can't catch Nyo?" Hu Nyo exclaimed proudly, and again began carving on a tree trunk. Ding Yuan Xian almost went mad in his utter rage. He was just wondering who it could be that made a carving of his name so hideous. So it seemed that it was this damn little girl. He turned to glare at Ling Han, his eyes filled with flames of fury. Ling Han spread his hands and said, "I know that the writing is a bit ugly, but you're already so old, so even if it's a bit ugly, it's fine. Anyways, you're not going to use it to seduce any girls." Fuck. Ding Yuan Xian was mad with anger. All over his body, closely set patterns appeared that transformed into endless flames which surged to surround Ling Han. Ling Han laughed loudly and drew his sword to parry. Instantly, 8 flashes of sword chi danced unhindered. But how terrifying was the battle prowess of 15 battle stars of a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator. Immediately, he was wounded and a couple of his bones were broken from the powerful shock wave. Various burns also appeared on his body. The sight was too horrible to look at. However, his eyes were still extremely bright. The path of the strongest did not mean that he could never be beaten, but no matter how many times he was defeated, he would stand back up again, defeat his powerful foe, and continue his advance to the top. With the support of this kind of belief, the 9th flash of sword chi seemed ready to come out at his call. Ding Yuan Xian, in any case, was at the level of a prodigy, and very soon sensed the change in Ling Han. He could not help but be slightly shocked. He felt that Ling Han was like a caterpillar that had become a cocoon. In the moment that it ripped out of its cocoon, it would be able to transform into a magnificent butterfly and display its luxurious beauty. This kind of feeling made him extremely displeased. Could it be that he was really only capable of becoming a polishing stone, but was not able to kill Ling Han at all? Ling Han forced him into a crisis. The battle prowess of 15 battle stars of the spiritual pedestal tier had far exceeded his limit, and the result of a straight-on clash was that he would hover over the boundary between life and death. And if it was not for the fact that he still had the thunder battle armor to protect himself and the sturdiness of the body of Rock Cliff and the recovery abilities of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, he didn't know how many times he would have already died by now. However, after endless times of surviving fatal encounters, it finally transformed into a determined comprehension. Xiao. The 9th flash of sword chi appeared at the same time, shining stunningly. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Ding Yuan Xian cursed loudly. Ling Han had already formed 2 flashes of sword chi from battling with him. A whole 2 flashes. One had to know that even he himself only possessed 7 flashes of chi. But Ling Han, who, too, originally only had 7 flashes of qi, now possessed an additional 2 flashes. This was the comprehension that a real genius would get when trapped between life and death. Ling Han gave him a thumbs up and, weak but filled with battle spirit, said, "I now pronounce you a gold medal sparring partner." Good. Applause. Hunyou began clapping her small hands from where she was standing. Ding Yuan Xian howled to the skies in his fury. This really made him too indignant. He had come to hunt Ling Han down, kill him, and snatch away the treasures the latter had, who said that he was here to be a sparring partner. After howling enough, he calmed down and drew out a spiritual talisman. This time, he was going to kill Ling Han at all costs. "Oh no, Nyo, let's flee quickly." Ling Han recognized with a single look that the spiritual talisman was a barbarian bull's spiritual talisman, which could greatly increase a cultivator's ability. He had been in tight enough straits in the beginning, and if he faced a Ding Yuan Xian that had used a barbarian bull's spiritual talisman, then merely being scratched by the wind created from a strike would be able to shatter even his bones. He was here to find a sparring partner, not to go to his death. He had already broken out into a run. Hunyou's speed was even faster. She caught up with him in a few steps, jumped onto Ling Han's back and called out happily, "Jia, Jia, Jia, run quickly." "You too." Ding Yuan Xian clenched his teeth. These two actually dared to joke around in front of him. He clapped the barbarian bull's spiritual talisman onto his body. Although this was a spiritual talisman used to increase one's power, it was not the type to increase speed. However, with a power upgrade, it would still increase the user's speed slightly. He was really driven to desperation and would spare no expense just to kill Ling Han. Chapter 419. Refining the Heavenly Luck Stone. Chapter 419. Refining the Heavenly Luck Stone. Indeed, with the power upgrade from the Barbarian Bull's spiritual talisman, though there was no surge to Ding Yuan Xian's speed, there was still a little increase. After a few steps, he soon caught up with Ling Han. "Do you think you're the only one with a spiritual talisman?" Ling Han laughed. He drew out the final Swift Cloud talisman and smacked it onto his body. Instantly, his speed shot up. There was a maximum limit to the effectiveness of the Swift Cloud talisman. For a user in the spiritual pedestal tier, the speed upgrade it offered was only about 20%. However, Ling Han was still in the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and thus the upgrade he got still doubled his original speed. Instantly, he once again distanced himself from Ding Yuan Xian. Ding Yuan Xian could not help but grit his teeth. He drew out a trump card, and Ling Han would draw a trump card of his own to deal with it. Could he really kill this unbelievably young elite? He ceased his advance and gave the matter some consideration, then decided to give up hunting down Ling Han. Not only that, he also decided that he would leave the North region and venture into the Middle State. Otherwise, if he continued to stay in the North region, perhaps he would need another 10+ years before he could manage to break through to the Flower Blossom tier. Leave. Anyone who could manage to make it to the prodigy role naturally had no lack of a decisive will. He immediately exited the Dark Devil Forest and headed directly to the Middle State without even returning to his own clan. Ling Han naturally did not know of Ding Yuan Xian's decision. After he recovered from his injuries, he began to leave behind carved messages to provoke Ding Yuan Xian again. But even after 5 days had passed, he still did not see Ding Yuan Xian appear, guessed that the latter might have given up his plans on hunting him down. Surprisingly decisive of him. Ling Han nodded. Ding Yuan Xian had seen the treasure that he had and could still leave so decisively. He was indeed a character. Still, without a sparring partner, he could only work hard and train on his own. Thankfully, he was already in the middle period of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, which was already quite fast. Ling Han still continued to search for various spiritual herbs on one end, as well as cultivating on the other. A month had passed, and he successfully gained 2 types of spiritual herbs that the Black Tower did not have yet. Furthermore, his cultivation level finally reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If you refine the Heavenly Luck Stone at this moment and use the installation of power from the Black Tower, you will be able to maximize the effects, Small Tower hinted. Ling Han nodded agreeably and drew out a piece of the heavenly luck stone. This was actually a stone bead, and when he crushed it, the inside turned out to be hollow. There was a kind of liquid inside there. The refreshing fragrance of this liquid wafted into his nose. Meanwhile, Hunyo also took out a piece and similarly sat in a cross-legged position. She was even more direct. She simply threw the piece of heavenly luck stone into her mouth and chewed on it for a bit. Ka, 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 and the rock was crushed. However, there was no odd signs at all. What feeling as if your insides were boiling and waves in your sea of consciousness. It was as if nothing happened at all. Ling Han knew that the heavenly luck stone's effects would only be seen when he broke through to the next tier. It would allow the cultivator's battle prowess to instantly soar up another 4 or 5 battle stars. Exactly how much the increase would be would depend on how sturdy the foundations for the cultivation level was. Ling Han had not eaten this thing in his last life, but he had obtained one for the sake of his smallest disciple, Jiang Yufeng. That brat only had 7 battle stars of battle prowess in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, but when he broke through to the flower blossom tier, he actually still had 6 battle stars of battle prowess. The higher one's cultivation level, the more difficult it would be to challenge a stronger opponent. If it was not for the heavenly luck stone, Jiang Yufeng would only have a maximum of 3 battle stars when he broke through to the flower blossom tier, so that was proof of how awesome the heavenly luck stone was. Ling Han mused ruefully for a moment, then exited the Black Tower together with Hunyo. They began to head towards where the crimson-red chilling ice grass was growing. They hadn't walked for very long, when Ling Han felt a shiver creep up his back. He immediately stopped walking and said, "Old wretch from the Thousand Corpse sect, how long do you intend to keep following me?" Elder Nine Clouds walked out of the dense forest, a hint of confusion in his eyes. He had witnessed Ling Han enter the midst of the demonic qi with his very eyes. That was something that even he was wary of and dared not come into contact with. Yet Ling Han not only walked out of it alive, he looked extremely lively and conscious. There was absolutely no sign that he had been turned insane by the demonic qi. Exactly how many treasures did this brat possess? Elder Nine Clouds' greed blazed. He knew that Ling Han could enter the Black Tower, and so had been trying to find a chance to attack at a time when Ling Han was unguarded the most to kill him instantly. Otherwise, if he once again allowed Ling Han to duck into the Black Tower, then he could only return without achieving anything. "Young man, you have already drawn the attention of our sect. Even if I cannot do anything to you, there will be even stronger people appearing next time to take your life and snatch away your good fortune. They are also going to refine you into a corpse soldier." He forced out through clenched teeth. He had never imagined that a junior in the spiritual ocean tier would be so hard to deal with. Ling Han gave an "oh" and asked curiously, "How strong are they?" "Hee, do you want to probe me? You are really too naive. Do you think that I'm a 3-year-old kid?" Elder Nine Clouds sneered. Ling Han drew out a stalk of ginseng and said, "Be good. Tell me, and I'll give you a stalk of ginseng." "Fuck." Elder Nine Clouds was driven to fuming rage. Did this brat really think of him as a dog that he would tempt him in this way? His eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. He declared, "Junior, if I do not refine you into a skinned corpse soldier, I swear that I will no longer be human." "You speak as if you are still human," Ling Han mocked. "Die!" Elder Nine Clouds shouted harshly. "The only one who will die is you." A booming voice resounded, and a sturdy figure emanating an oppressive aura shot out. "Fist Emperor." Elder Nine Clouds' aged eyes tensed, and he showed signs of wariness. Though the other had not broken through to the flower blossom tier for very long, he had managed to form Fist Ray already, and had even managed to battle the golden blood demonic ape to a standstill. One could not help but tremble in the face of such battle prowess. Moreover, the Thousand Corpse sect depended on the corpse soldiers they controlled. Their personal battle prowess was not too impressive. Furthermore, though the other had suffered injuries after battling the golden blood demonic ape, not only had he recovered from his injuries after so many days, his ability had also advanced further as he had broken through to the second layer of the flower blossom tier. One could not help but gasp at the fact that he could still advance so fast even after he had broken through to the Flower Blossom tier. The Rain Emperor was a dominating figure. When his eyes turned upon Elder Nine Clouds, an endless killing intent appeared in them. Monster from the Thousand Corpse sect, kill. He curled his hand into a fist and delivered a punch. The fist ray appeared in bright brilliance. This was a deadly weapon that had exceeded chi. One could say that even if Ling Han managed to form 30 flashes of sword chi, they would still be unable to stand against the weakest fist ray. This was a one-sided domination due to the difference in quality. Of course, if Ling Han managed to condense the 30 flashes of sword chi into sword ray, then that naturally would give him a dominating advantage against a fist ray that had been condensed from 10 flashes of chi. Although Elder Nine Clouds was in the 5th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, he was completely incapable of standing against the Rain Emperor, who had already formed fist ray. Within a few moves, he was already wailing. He exclaimed harshly, "Fist Emperor, I do not want to become your enemy, but if you continue to be overbearing, don't blame me for being merciless." So what if I am? Any person that I want to kill has never managed to survive. The Rain Emperor used the Son of Heaven fist technique. The fist ray moved with a brilliance, possessing terrifying might behind it. Elder Nine Clouds gave a sharp whistle, and a strange noise was immediately heard from some distance away. Very soon, an iron coffin slid over. Pong! The coffin lid shot open and a corpse soldier jumped out. It was completely silver in color, as if it was forged from silver. Level 3 Silver Armored Corpse, Ling Han said. This corpse soldier had reached the limit for a silver armored corpse. Kaka, that's right. This is a level 3 silver armored corpse. After my various methods of tempering and refining, its ability is now close to the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier. Elder Nine Clouds haughtily declared, "Fist Emperor, it's still possible for you to leave now **fuck**. He didn't finish and cursed. That was because one of the fists of the Rain Emperor had already shot forward grandly. Chapter 420, Battering Away. Chapter 420, Battering Away. The Rain Emperor was still the Rain Emperor, dominating, unwavering like an emperor, and with a firm resolve. Elder Nine Clouds quickly manipulated the corpse soldier to receive the oncoming barrage of attacks. Pu, 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 pu. Endless muffled noises were heard. The Rain Emperor's punches battered the corpse soldier, but only left behind multiple very light wounds. It was indeed a level 3 silver armored corpse. This defense was comparable to the best kind of level 6 forging materials. Even fist ray practically left no damage. However, the Rain Emperor paid it no mind. He had the dominating character of an emperor. His punches continued to rain down, determined to batter the corpse soldier into dust. Elder Nine Clouds smirked. If they were only talking about defense, this corpse soldier was even stronger than the demonic ape, and only lacked power and destructive ability. But there was no need for him to kill the Rain Emperor. It was enough to contain him. "Young man, are you still going to flee now?" He smirked. The fact that he possessed a spirit tool that could contain living creatures was an unbelievably shocking secret. He did not believe that Ling Han would dare to use it in front of the Fist Emperor. In this manner, he had gained a chance. Ling Han smiled and said, "No." "Haha, so you are prepared to die?" Elder Nine Clouds' killing intent intensified. "No, I still have a helper." Ling Han looked towards the northwest and called out, "Brother Ao, please lend me a hand." "What?" Elder Nine Clouds followed Ling Han's lead and looked towards the direction he was looking at, but did not detect any movement. He scoffed, "Brat, don't make this unnecessarily complicated." Ho-Ho, a grand cultivator of the Flower Blossom tier. And yet the sensory abilities are beneath Spiritual Ocean tier ones? Does the Thousand Corpse sect all consist of such trash? Laughter resounded, and a person walked forth in midair. It was Aofeng. Elder Nine Clouds instantly frowned. Why was there another cultivator of the Flower Blossom tier? Though this man, too, had just broken through to the Flower Blossom tier recently, who knew how many battle stars he possessed? Most importantly, 4 members of the Thousand Corpse sect, Their personal battle prowess was really not that remarkable. Otherwise, one who was in the 5th layer should have absolute confidence in his victory against an opponent in the 1st layer. Grandmaster Ling is indeed an extraordinary genius, Ao Feng complimented. He, too, had witnessed Ling Han run into the midst of the demonic qi, but did not suffer the slightest bit from its effects, which was something that left him shocked. Furthermore, he had been standing so far away to observe the battle just now, but Ling Han had still discovered his presence. This kind of divine sense was really terrifying. One had to understand that Ling Han had been in the Heaven Tier in his last life, and even if only a sliver of the divine sense of the Heaven Tier was left behind, if one were talking about sensory abilities, not even someone in the spiritual infant tier could catch up to him. Thank you for your praise, Brother Ao. Ling Han smiled, then began to fervently egg him on. Brother Ao, this is one of the dregs of the 1,000 Corpse sect. Please help to eliminate him and remove this poisonous tumor for the world's peace. Of course. Ao Feng nodded, seeming to be very righteous. However, internally, he was extremely displeased. His original intention was to allow the Rain Emperor and Elder Nine Clouds to battle to the point that they were both severely wounded, would then step out to calmly deal with the situation. He had never thought that Ling Han would call him out ahead of time. After all, he had only just broken through to the Flower Blossom tier, and unlike the Rain Emperor who had formed Fist Ray and was a real ruler, his battle prowess was only slightly above 2 or 3 battle stars. Against Elder Nine Clouds, it would really be difficult to decide the victor. However, the 1,000 Corpse sect actually dared to set up a branch right beneath the nose of the Winter Moon sect, obviously with devious plans in mind. As an elder of the Winter Moon sect since he had broken through to the Flower Blossom tier, he was naturally promoted from attendant to elder now that Ao Feng had seen a member of the 1,000 Corpse sect. What logic was there in simply standing by and watching? His right hand shook and a plain-looking sword appeared, covered with an obscure pattern. Ling Han's eyes lit up. This was a level 6 spirit tool. He surmised that it had to be a family heirloom of the Ao clan. Most importantly, the forging materials to create a level 6 spirit tool were really too rare, so such a spirit tool could only be passed down the generations. One could not simply forge a new one as one liked. Elder Nine Cloud's expression became serious. His arms spread out and moved. A grayish corpse qi came to being, which slowly twined around his figure. Corpse qi and demonic qi were different methods that could achieve the same result. Demonic qi could cause one to go mad, whereas corpse qi was poisonous. Even if one in the Flower Blossom tier inhaled it for too long or was exposed to it for too long, his whole body would similarly rot, or even transform into a corpse soldier. Ao Feng waved his sword and advanced, not daring to keep any of his power in reserve. 8 flashes of sword qi danced, fully displaying the might of a ruler. Ling Han nodded. If he were being honest, Ao Feng was indeed a genius, and though Ling Dongxing was not an idiot either, the latter did not have as much talent as the former. If the two of them battled on the same cultivation level, Ling Dongxing would definitely lose. Therefore, it was necessary to have a dominating advantage in terms of cultivation level in order to allow Ling Dongxing to emerge victorious against Ao Feng. For anyone else, this might be a very difficult thing to do, but for Ling Han, it was practically a piece of cake. The spirit herbs in the Black Tower were becoming more abundant, and he had absolute confidence that he could help Ling Dongxing soar to the peak period of the spiritual pedestal tier in 3 years' time, and break through to the spiritual infant tier in 20 years' time. However, above that, his advance would slow down to the speed of a tortoise's crawl. After all, after the breakthrough of one's cultivation to the spiritual infant and the deity transformation tier, alchemical pills would only be effective in helping to accumulate origin power. Without enough comprehension of the cultivation level, no matter how many alchemical pills you were given, it would be a waste. Only genuine natural treasures had the amazing effect of assisting one in comprehending the great Tao. This was a blessing from nature. The matter of vengeance could be advanced slowly. Rescuing his mother from prison had to be the priority now. If he had to wait until Ling Dongxing possessed enough power, then his mother would have experienced too much suffering. Ling Han thought. The battle happening in front of him now was very exciting, but as someone who had once been in the heaven tier in his last life, it was not to the level that would interest him. He would not be inspired or draw inspiration from watching. Ao Feng had the help of a spirit tool and obviously had the upper hand. But the Rain Emperor was gradually falling into a disadvantage. The defense of a level 3 silver armored corpse were practically invincible, so how was he to continue playing this game? If the Rain Emperor was in the late period of the Flower Blossom tier, then he would still have a chance to win, but currently, he was too far from that. The situation was very delicate. If the corpse soldier could kill or force the Rain Emperor to retreat and then join forces with Elder Nine Clouds, then they would definitely be able to subdue Ao Feng easily. However, on the other hand, if Ao Feng managed to kill Elder Nine Clouds first, then the result would similarly be decided. So would it be the Rain Emperor who would first fail to hold on, or Elder Nine Clouds? Without a doubt, it was Elder Nine Clouds who would first beat the drums of retreat. What a joke! For someone as dominating and forceful as the Rain Emperor, the stronger the opponent, the more his battle spirit would blaze. He was the standard type that would use battle to cultivate his own battle spirit and make use of a bloody battle to break through his own limits. How could he possibly give up on such a good opponent like a level 3 silver armored corpse? Elder Nine Clouds fled, and the Rain Emperor and Ao Feng were hot on his heels. However, after a while, the two of them returned. Naturally, they had lost track of him. After all, Elder Nine Clouds had too much of an advantage in terms of cultivation level. Running away only depended on one's speed, and the ability to battle an opponent stronger than oneself was not of much use here. Ao Feng exchanged some pleasantries with Ling Han, and also invited him to visit the Winter Moon sect as a guest. Then, he conversed with the Rain Emperor too before begging his leave and departing. It was unknown whether he was heading back to the Winter Moon sect or continuing on his quest to find Han Lin. Grandmaster Ling, we have not seen each other for several months, and you have indeed once again made me see you in a new light. The Rain Emperor smiled. His voice was filled with ruefulness. He was certain that Ling Han would definitely become an Earth-grade alchemist, but he had not foreseen that it would happen so quickly. A young man that was still over a month away from reaching 18 years old was shockingly already an Earth-grade alchemist. Who would dare to believe such a thing? Congratulations to you for breaking through to the Flower Blossom tier and casting off your mortal shell, Rain Emperor. Ling Han smiled in return. Chapter 421, Thrashing a Dog. Chapter 421, Thrashing a Dog. Though there was quite a gap between Ling Han and the Rain Emperor in terms of cultivation, Ling Han's status as an Earth-grade alchemist was enough to let the two of them stand on equal footing. Strictly speaking, an Earth-grade low-level alchemist even had slightly higher status than a Flower Blossom tier cultivator. The two of them conversed for a while. When he found out that Ling Han was going to collect the crimson-red chilling ice grass, the Rain Emperor indicated that he would like to go with Ling Han and give him a helping hand. Ling Han gladly accepted. After so many days, who knows how many people were already aiming for that spiritual herb. Though he believed that no one below spiritual infant tier could obtain it successfully, there might be cultivators in the Flower Blossom tier standing guard by the side, who would seize it from him when they saw that he had succeeded. What was he going to do then? The secret of the Black Tower was already known to some people, and Ling Han did not want to allow it to spread even wider. Thankfully, whether it was Rong Huanxian, Azura Demon Emperor, or Elder Nine Clouds, they all only thought that he had a spirit tool that could contain living things and did not know that it was the Black Tower, which was not as ordinary as merely being able to contain living creatures. It's now even more difficult to see through this little girl. The Rain Emperor turned to look at Hunyo. In the past, he could still somehow manage to sense that the little girl had the cultivation of the Gushing Spring tier, but now it was as if Hunyo had turned into mist and looked very hazy to his eyes. Hunyo giggled in response. Since Ling Han treated the Rain Emperor politely, she would give him face as well. Otherwise, who would bother? The three of them journeyed towards the location of the crimson-red chilling ice grass. It was located in the core area in the first place, so after only less than half a day, the three of them had arrived at their destination. However, they were not the only ones. 3 other people were already here. Yao Huiyu, Tong Jiming, as well as Zhu Xian'er. These three obviously wanted to obtain the crimson-red chilling ice grass as well, yet were unable to do so. Though Zhu Xin'er's face could not be seen, it had to be filled with anxiety. Sensing the approach of Ling Han and the others, Yao Huiyu's eyes swept over them and immediately lit up brilliantly, as if his gaze had transformed into uncountable sharp blades that shone with luster. An endless battle spirit gushed out from him. He stared fixatedly at the Rain Emperor. Wong, wong, wong. The long sword at his waist actually released humming sounds, as if it wanted to exit its sheath on its own. The Rain Emperor was the same. A mighty aura spread out from him with multiple flashes of divine light surging around him, which transformed into multiple solid fists. The two of them had already taken a fancy to each other in the great battle with the demonic ape, but afterwards, both had suffered heavy injuries and thus naturally went off to heal their wounds, as well as digest the battle comprehension they had obtained through this battle. This was the second time they had met, and both were at their best condition. As a result, battle spirit instantly soared in both of them. "Young man, you still dare to appear. Have you forgotten what my lord has said?" Tong Jiming smirked coldly at Ling Han in the past. Yao Huiyu had declared that the next time he saw Ling Han, he was definitely going to take his life. Ling Han glanced at him and said, "Whose dog is this that only knows how to bark crazily all day and night? If the owner's not going to take care of properly, I'm going to kill it." Yao Huiyu withdrew his attention from the Rain Emperor and said calmly to Ling Han, "If you have the ability, then you can kill if you like." Tong Jiming sneered. He was in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier and his battle prowess was at least 12 stars. So how could a young man in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean compare to that? Pooh. He was instantly astonished. The 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? Not even 3 months had passed, but how had this guy leaped from the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier all the way to the 9th? This. Previously, he had praised Yao Huiyu for being in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at 17 years old, and this young man in front of him now was in no way inferior. Could it be that this would be the second coming of Yao Huiyu? However, so what if he was in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? There was still a gap of a complete tier between the both of them, and that was a gulf that no amount of talent would be able to compensate for. "See how I shall suppress you," he shouted loudly. Since Yao Huiyu had allowed him to act, he would naturally not have any more reservations. Ling Han smiled calmly. He was able to deal even with Ding Yuan Xian, who had 15 battle stars, so what more Tong Jiming, who only had 12? Furthermore, he had already broken through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier now, so his battle prowess had naturally increased by another 1 or 2 battle stars. However, he did not have the time to tangle with him. Anyways, he wanted to collect the crimson-red chilling ice grass, so he might as well just play his trump card directly. "Small tower," he called out internally. Hong. Small tower instantly moved the black tower to begin the installation of power. His aura began to spike madly. The middle period, the late period, the peak period of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. He only paused momentarily before passing over the threshold smoothly and into the spiritual pedestal tier. Then, it was the 1st layer, the 2nd, the 3rd, and soared crazily like this all the way, until his cultivation finally stalled at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Pooh. The Rain Emperor, Yao Huiyu, Zhu Xin'er, and Tong Jiming all widened their eyes at the same time, completely incapable of believing what they saw happen with their very eyes. What kind of alchemical pill is this that would allow one's cultivation to increase by a whole major tier? The Rain Emperor and Zhu Xin'er knew that Ling Han was an earth-grade alchemist, so it was not too strange for him to be capable of concocting an alchemical pill that could raise his cultivation level temporarily, but they had never heard of there being one that could grant one such a great increase. Meanwhile, Tong Jiming's mouth twitched. Though he had not battled with Ling Han before, merely based on Yao Huiyu's judgment about Ling Han, he knew that the latter definitely had terrifying battle prowess. And now that the both of them had equal cultivation levels, how was he supposed to continue? "For the sake of your master, I shall spare your life." Ling Han waved his hand. A flash of sword chi appeared and shot forwards. Tong Jiming hurried to parry, but this flash of sword chi directly flung open his guarding arms. With a pu, it streamed past his neck, leaving behind a wound that instantly gushed out blood. His expression changed due to shock. This was obviously Ling Han being merciful. Otherwise, he was definitely capable of killing him in an instant. Of course, if Ling Han really made the move to kill him, Yao Huiyu would definitely not sit by and watch quietly and act to save him. Yao Huiyu looked contemplative. The current Ling Han was still much weaker than him, yet he still made his hands itch incomparably, wanting to challenge the former to a battle. However, whining against such a weakling was absolutely of no help to his formation of sword heart. Thus, he forcefully suppressed the urge. Ling Han did not give him a second glance and directly walked towards the crimson-red chilling ice grass from the fiery area. He had taken a petal of the golden flower of the stone, so need not fear the flames. Zhu Xin'er's eyes lit up. Could it be that Ling Han was capable of collecting the crimson-red chilling ice grass? She instantly cast off her thoughts of stopping him. She was completely incapable of plucking this spiritual herb, but if it fell into Ling Han's possession, then there was at least some hope. Ling Han strode forwards. Wang, the thunder battle armor activated and multiple flashes of lightning appeared and repelled all the flames. He now had the ability of the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, which was enough to activate the defense ability of the thunder battle armor until the extent of the late period of the flower blossom tier. Yao Huiyu, that kind of monster, obviously was only in the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier, but had at least 10 battle stars. However, battle prowess being 10 stars did not mean that defense was also 10 stars. The might of the flames would attack from all directions, so it was useless no matter how monstrous your battle prowess was unless he could destroy this whole place with a wave of his sword. Therefore, in this place, Yao Huiyu's resistance was at most comparable to a normal cultivator's in the 3rd or 4th layer of the flower blossom tier. The maximum was the 5th layer. It was definitely no higher than that. Ling Han quickly traveled half the distance, but as he continued to advance, his speed slowed down. Numerous holes appeared on the thunder battle armor. The flames entered through these holes and battered Ling Han's body. Instantly, a charred hole would appear. However, Ling Han did not even wrinkle his brow and merely continued to walk forwards. Chapter 422. Obtaining the Spiritual Herb. Chapter 422. Obtaining the spiritual herb. In Ling Han's eyes, there was nothing more important than obtaining the crimson-red chilling ice grass on this trip. In exchange for this spiritual herb, he could even sacrifice the heavenly luck stone and the primal chaos source rock. He was suffering under enormous agony, but looked as if he felt nothing. The body of rock cliff could cut off his sense of pain, and the indestructible heaven scroll was fully protecting the source of his life, and added with the protection offered by the thunder battle armor. This granted him the qualification to continue advancing. The Rain Emperor and Yao Huiyu both looked astonished. If they were merely talking in terms of defense, Ling Han was already superior to the both of them. However, in battle, defense was a passive ability because a powerful level of attack also belonged to defense, capable of forcing an opponent to the level that he could not fight back. So even if defense were slightly weaker, what could that impact? Their astonishment was due to that suit of battle armor that Ling Han was wearing. It was really too shocking. It was actually capable of raising the defense to the level of passive protection of a cultivator in the peak period of the flower blossom tier, and protect Ling Han from all angles. However, for some unknown reason, they kept feeling that there was some flaw in this battle armor. That was because a hole had been pierced through the thunder battle armor, which was the reason for this faint feeling of strangeness. It was still fine for lower cultivation level, but the higher the cultivation level, the more magnified this flaw would be. After all, it was not a completely whole, flawless level 10 spirit tool. Zhu Xin'er's eyes lit up in the meantime. She hoped very much that Ling Han could successfully collect the spiritual herb. As long as he succeeded, there would still be room for discussion. Ling Han did not bother with what the others were thinking. He simply strode forwards, intending to take as much advantage of this chance to collect the crimson-red chilling ice grass as possible. Otherwise, he could only wait until after he broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier to once again make use of the installation of power from the Black Tower. But he still wanted to suppress his own cultivation level and return to completely perfect this cultivation level, and did not intend to break through so quickly. Thus, if he could make use of this installation of power to obtain the crimson-red chilling ice grass, that was naturally best. Moreover, this kind of trial was also a chance for him. 4 meters, 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter. The spiritual herb was within reach, but Ling Han looked to be in great pain. The might of these flames was really too terrifying. Even if he had cut off his sense of pain, he was still unable to escape it completely because he felt as if his divine sense was also burning, making him feel extremely horrible. He definitely had to be as fast as possible. Ling Han took another step forward and finally arrived next to the spiritual herb. However, he did not pluck the spiritual herb, but rather drew the demon birth sword, intending to dig out the spiritual herb. As long as he could store it into the Black Tower alive, then who cared what kind of environmental conditions it needed? It would be able to continue growing in the Black Tower and could grow even better, as one day inside would be equal to 3 years. This was a level 7 spiritual herb, so Ling Han naturally did not intend to use it only once. Jiang, the sword scraped against the white rock underneath, instantly creating innumerable sparks of fire and left behind a light trace. However, the tip of the sword solidified into a flash of snow white. An icy cold feeling quickly spread out from the blade of the sword, which made Ling Han shiver and feel as if all the blood in his body was about to freeze. He planned to slice this piece of rock in the middle and store it into the Black Tower as well. The tip of the sword thus naturally stabbed into the icy ground, which caused the attack of an icy air. And what was even stranger was that though the other half of the sword's blade was in the fiery ground, it did not cancel out the cold air, but rather cooperated with it extremely well. After a surge of cold air, then came a surge of burning heat, making Ling Han's blood that had been frozen just moments ago boil again in an instant. It was such agony that he immediately spat out blood. Fuck, this was the genuine feeling of experiencing ice and fire at the same time. Ling Han gritted his teeth, but had no intention to stop at all. Ding, 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 ding. He used the demon birth sword like it was a chopper and continuously sliced away at the rock. Thankfully, it was a level 10 spirit tool. If the grade was slightly lower and it was used to slice away at this kind of place where ice and fire wove together, the durability of the weapon would definitely be decreased. Within a few moments, it'd probably be shattered. However, even so, because Ling Han's ability was at solid disadvantage, he did not slice very quickly. Meanwhile, his left arm, left leg, and right leg were beginning to be charred, and the fragrance of barbecued meat gradually wafted out. His right arm was still fine because he focused the indestructible heaven scroll to heal it and gave up on the other, unimportant, parts. Hunyo was very anxious and jumped around in panic. However, she was still filled with wariness for this ice and fire area, and did not dare to rush in thoughtlessly. Moreover, Ling Han was still standing and waving his sword, so things had not advanced to the worst extent. If Ling Han fell down, she would definitely scramble over and try her best to drag Ling Han out. When his 2 legs were about to be burnt off, Ling Han used the indestructible true fluid without hesitation. He had a total of 3 drops, which would allow him to recover completely for 3 times. Wang, a majestic essence of life, flowed within his body. Instantly, all his injuries were healed. Ding, ding, ding. Ling Han was chopping more energetically. But when the essence of the indestructible true fluid was completely expended, his arm and legs began to once again show signs of being charred. Meanwhile, Yao Huiyu and the others were watching dumbfounded. He was actually able to recover instantly from such serious injuries. How terrifying was that kind of divine pill that possessed such recovery abilities? If they managed to get one, then wouldn't that mean that they would be granted an extra life? Yao Huiyu was not yet aware of Ling Han's identity, but Zhu Xin'er and the Rain Emperor both nodded internally. He was really worthy of being an Earth-grade alchemist. He was awesome. If this was known to Lu Jitong and the other Earth-grade alchemists, they would definitely break out into tears. How could there possibly be such an awesome Earth-grade alchemical pill in this world? Only the legendary sacred medicine, the 9 Immortals pill, possessed such effects, but that was a heaven-grade mid-level alchemical pill, and there was no longer anyone who could concoct it in this world. Ling Han sliced and sliced. Ding, 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 ding. The sounds of impact did not stop, which made Yao Huiyu and the others all confused. Why did he not simply pull out the spiritual herb and leave, but chop the rock so determinately instead? Could it be that he actually wanted to get a live one and take it back so that he could continue to grow it? Did he actually have a suitable environment for it? They had really guessed correctly. However, there was absolutely no way that they would actually guess that there existed a priceless treasure like the Black Tower. Ling Han quickly used the second drop of indestructible true fluid. However, this time, it was obvious that his recovery speed had slowed down, and the medicinal effects had also disappeared faster. Even such a godly item would make one slowly immune to it. True, a drop of indestructible true fluid was practically capable of reviving a dead person and furthermore, healed his injuries completely. If there was not any kind of limits to it, then it would really be illogical. When the effects of the second drop of indestructible true fluid completely vanished, Ling Han had already chopped off 2/3 of the white rock. He could not help but sigh. If he could grasp Sword Ray at this time and used 10,000 techniques return to one at the same time, perhaps one strike would be enough to completely chop this piece of rock in two. There was no other way at this point, so he could only keep circulating the four-season sword technique. If he used the mysterious 3,000, then Yao Huiyu would definitely be able to tell. At that time, then it was even possible that the old monsters of the Heaven Sword sect would move out and interrogate him forcefully to find out where he had learnt this sword technique from. By then, even if he could invent some kind of reason, how could the Heaven Sword sect spare an outsider that had learnt a sword technique of their sect? Thus, before he had adequate power, Ling Han did not want to let the Heaven Sword sect know that he had learnt the 3 styles of black origin. I chop, 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 chop. Only after a while was Ling Han forced to use the last drop of indestructible true fluid, and by this time, the white rock was close to being chopped off completely. Ling Han seemed to have gone mad. There was no longer any indestructible true fluid to extend his life for him, so he had to chop the white rock completely before he collapsed. Chapter 423. Chapter 423, Battling Yao Huiyu. Charred skin once again appeared on Ling Han's arms and legs, but there was only a tiny sliver of the white rock left. He gave a loud yell and made a vast slash with his sword. Pong! The rock finally broke. He stretched out a hand and pressed down on it, whilst communicating with the Black Tower. Shio! He had stored both the broken rock along with the scarlet rainbow frost ice grass inside the Black Tower. Retreat! He hurriedly retreated, and in a few steps, exited the zone of flames. He quickly drew out multiple alchemical pills which he swallowed down like crazy. In the meantime, he continuously circulated the indestructible heaven scroll to heal his injuries. You're already cooked, Hunyo said with a hint of heartache in her voice as she raced over, but when she gave a few sniffs with her little nose, her saliva dripped out of her mouth. Smells nice. The corner of Ling Han's mouth twitched. Was this little girl going to pounce on him and take a bite? Grandmaster Ling, please give the crimson red chilling ice grass to me. No matter how many origin crystals, I will pay you for it. Zhu Xin'er immediately exclaimed. Grandmaster Ling? Yao Huiyu wore a thoughtful smile. He's an alchemist? Earth-grade low-level alchemist, the Rain Emperor answered. This time, Yao Huiyu finally looked surprised. He had estimated that Ling Han was at most a black-grade mid-level alchemist, or high-level at best, but he had never imagined that Ling Han was actually an Earth-grade alchemist. Don't think lesser of an Earth-grade low-level alchemist. Once one passed to Earth-grade, it was like a cultivator had passed into the flower blossom tier. It was a completely different plane. A young man who had yet to reach 18 years old was actually an Earth-grade low-level alchemist. Yao Huiyu's talent in martial arts was indeed worthy of receiving a thumbs up from mostly everyone in this world. But if his talent was compared to Ling Han's accomplishments in alchemy, Ling Han was in no way inferior. or might have even exceeded him drastically. That was because when he was at Ling Han's age, he was only in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. That was only comparable to being a black-grade mid-level alchemist. But what about Ling Han? In martial arts, he had reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier as well. He was a really terrifying young man. No wonder his heart would throb with the feeling that Ling Han would be one of his greatest rivals in the future. Yet Ling Han did not pay them any attention. He merely continued to circulate the indestructible heaven scroll. The effects of the alchemical pills were also continuously taking effect, allowing his body to recover at a rapid rate. As long as he was not constantly being attacked by the flames, the indestructible heaven scroll could display its effects to the fullest. After about 10+ minutes, he stood back up. Though his injuries had not recovered completely, most of his injuries had. Ling Han, hand over the crimson-red chilling ice grass to Shinner and I can spare your life, Yao Huiyu said calmly. He had said before that the next time he saw Ling Han, he would take the latter's life. The Rain Emperor immediately humphed and interrupted. I was just thinking to have a battle with you. He decisively accepted the challenge to battle in Ling Han's stead. Yet Ling Han smiled and said, Rain Emperor, just leave this battle to me. There was still half an hour left of the installation of power from the Black Tower, so how could it be wasted? Ha 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 ha. Yao Huiyu laughed loudly, but as he laughed, he kept shaking his head. Though I have a high opinion of your potential, the current you is not acceptable. You are not yet qualified to battle me. You'd only find out after a battle. Ling Han waved the demon birth sword. Faint patterns appeared, and a terrifying pressure emanated from the sword. This kind of pressure had strong suppressive effects on any cultivator below the flower blossom tier, but its effects were limited against those upwards. After all, from that cultivation tier onwards, the cultivator had stepped beyond the limits of mortality. Yao Huiyu humphed and said, I was originally very expectant of the day that you will come to challenge me in the future, but if you insist to seek your own death, I do not mind granting your wish either. He was someone who had no fear of killing in the first place. He did not have the habit of treasuring talent, either. It was only a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing for him to make a 2-year promise with Ling Han, so naturally, he did not mind killing Ling Han before then. Mr. Yao, Grandmaster Ling is an Earth-grade alchemist, Zhu Xin'er reminded coldly. Though she very much wanted the crimson-red chilling ice grass, she had no intention to take Ling Han's life for it. Moreover, the two of them were still supposed to head to the Middle State to battle together and were allies. How could she possibly sit by and watch? Yao Huiyu smirked. Others might fear the Alchemist Society, but how could he? The internal workings of age-old sects, like the Heaven's Sword sect, were far stronger than anyone dared to imagine. Even the Alchemist Society would not be willing to trifle with them easily. So what if he killed Ling Han? Could it be that the Alchemist Society would dare to come to Heaven's Sword sect to apprehend him? If you can block 3 sword strikes from me, I will spare you, he said darkly. Don't think that his heart had softened. It was an absolutely one-sided domination for one in the flower blossom tier against an opponent in the spiritual pedestal tier. Wouldn't 3 moves be enough to kill? Ling Han raised the demon birth sword levelly and answered calmly, You won't be able to kill me. These were honest words. Currently, he was, at any rate, in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and at least before the installation of power from the Black Tower ended, he would be able to activate the peak period of the Flower Blossom tier-level defense from the Thunder Battle Armor. As for when the installation of power from the Black Tower ended, naturally, he would then beckon over the Rain Emperor to take his place. He was definitely not a man who was willing to die for useless pride. First strike. Yao Huiyu acted. He casually waved his finger, merely forming 5 flashes of sword chi. But who was he? Not only was he in the Flower Blossom tier, he had also proclaimed himself as the 2nd strongest swordsman in the world. Though that was a bit of an exaggeration, his power in the Flower Blossom tier was still unbelievably strong. It was as if these 5 flashes of sword chi were furious dragons that could easily kill a cultivator in the 9th layer of the spiritual tier over 100 times. In the first place, the gap between the spiritual pedestal and the Flower Blossom tier was like the gap between heaven and earth, What more when it was the kind of monster that Yao Huiyu was? Ling Han was unafraid and waved his sword to parry. Pu, 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 Pu. He could not slice apart Yao Huiyu's sword chi, but the thunder battle armor managed to easily block all 5 flashes. Ling Han wasn't even forced back from the impact. Interesting. Yao Huiyu smiled. Previously, he had already seen the defensive ability that the thunder battle armor displayed against flames, but being able to resist flames and being able to defend against a powerful attack were 2 completely different things. For example, an earthen wall could resist fire, but facing a powerful attack, it would definitely be broken. After this one strike, Yao Huiyu's thought that it was a fluke had disappeared. The thunder battle armor could not only defend against fire and ice attacks, but was also effective against powerful attacks. He had to get serious. Yao Huiyu drew his sword, his expression serious. For someone as proud as he, since he had declared that he would strike 3 times, he was definitely not going to strike a 4th time. Otherwise, that would ruin the core of his art of the sword, and he could never possibly form sword heart in this lifetime. He once again waved his hand. Shto, 9 flashes of sword chi appeared simultaneously and charged towards Ling Han. Pung! These flashes of sword chi were once again perfectly dispersed by the thunder battle armor. How could normal attacks be effective against defense at the level of the peak period of the Flower Blossom tier? Yao Huiyu's expression increased in seriousness. He did not mean to take Ling Han seriously at all, but the might of the latter's battle armor had exceeded his expectations. He had to use his best move, or he would really be unable to kill this young opponent. He took in a deep breath, and his treasured sword trembled slightly. Endless sword chi was exuded from all over his body, as if the wielder had also transformed into a sword. His body was the sword. His consciousness was the sword. All was the sword. Ling Han was greatly moved. In his last life, he had naturally not seen the Sword Emperor attack at full strength, and Yao Huiyu's trying his best now instantly gave him inspiration. So the path of the sword could be walked in this way too. He wanted to walk the path of the strongest, so naturally, he had to absorb the strongest points of various paths. Mysterious 3000, slashing all 3 realms. Yao Huiyu struck. Xiao, xiao, xiao. A total of 1,200 flashes of light actually shone with luster from the strike. Ling Han smiled. It was indeed the mysterious 3000. He had made the right bet. Chapter 424, A Narrow Victory. Chapter 424, A Narrow Victory. 1,200 sword flashes. This meant that Yao Huiyu had shot out 11 flashes of sword chi. That was how the total number of sword flashes reached the high point of 1,200. This was an extremely terrifying attack. A cultivator in the Flower Blossom tier was capable of shooting out 1,200 sword flashes, and every flash was equivalent to Yao Huiyu's full power attack. If these sword flashes crashed onto the thunder battle armor, they were perfectly capable of crushing its Flower Blossom tier-level defense. They were too concentrated and too powerful. Ling Han was also slightly surprised. He had foreseen that when the first 2 strikes of Yao Huiyu produced no effect, he would definitely use the mysterious 3000 in the 3rd strike. The latter's pride and self-esteem would not allow the words he had declared to fall empty. However, he had never thought that Yao Huiyu had indeed hidden his real ability. He had actually formed as many as 11 flashes of sword chi. He was indeed a very ambitious man. He had already formed 11 flashes of sword chi, yet did not choose to consolidate them into sword ray. Was he planning to form 29 flashes then? The Rain Emperor was also greatly stirred. He had formed Fist Ray only after he had formed 10 flashes of chi, but he had never thought that 10 flashes was not the limit at all. There was nothing to be done about that. Due to the limits of the power structure, there was no way that the Rain Emperor's understanding and knowledge about martial arts could compare with a disciple of Heaven's Sword sect. This had nothing to do with personal talent, but was rather due to the gap between their respective legacies. Ling Han moved and used the Shadow Wind motion, and actually managed to weave around the 1,200 sword flashes. Extremely coincidentally and very amazingly, he avoided one sword flash after another, heading towards Yao Huiyu in attack. That was too inconceivable. The Rain Emperor and Zhu Xin'er could not help but gape. That was definitely Yao Huiyu's strongest attack. If it was them, even if Zhu Xin'er broke through to the Flower Blossom tier, she would only be able to stay on the defense against such an attack. Otherwise, she could only choose to retreat early on to avoid facing such power directly. But soon after, they immediately shook their heads internally. That was 1,200 sword flashes. It was absolutely impossible to defend against. Unless they possessed an overwhelming advantage in cultivation level, that would be the only way they could parry what was equivalent to the fierce attack of 1,200 Tao Huiyu. The only option was to retreat and dodge. This was the conclusion that the two of them had reached, yet Ling Han did the exact opposite. He actually went straight up against the 1,200 sword flashes and charged towards Yao Huiyu to attack. But it seemed as if he could really succeed. He had already managed to dodge over 700 sword flashes. How could this scene not strike the Rain Emperor and Zhu Xin'er dumb? Meanwhile, Tong Jiming was gritting his teeth as well, yet he felt as if the pain caused by the injury on his neck had increased slightly. Only Hunyo kept clapping her hands, calling out in praise. 800, 900, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200. Ling Han actually managed to pass all 1,200 sword flashes and arrived in front of Yao Huiyu. His sword streaked past, and he used the 4 seasons sword technique. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter cycled. Pong! Yao Huiyu was struck, and his figure was instantly flung backwards from the impact. However, multiple patterns lit up on his body, and when he touched the ground, there was only a very shallow wound on the left side of his face. Blood was seeping out, but it was as if it was mercury. It dripped slowly and exuded a silvery white light. Ling Han withdrew his sword. He managed to turn tables around in the final attack because he, too, had cultivated the mysterious 3,000. Moreover, he had formed 9 flashes of sword chi himself, which was only 2 flashes of sword chi less than his opponent. As a result, he naturally knew how these sword flashes circulated, though the additional 200 flashes did give him some trouble. However, he did have the divine sense of the heaven tier after all, and his opponent was only in the flower blossom tier, so the additional 200 sword flashes were not too much of a problem. This was what led to a Miraclia cultivator of the 9th layer of spiritual pedestal tier overcame the strongest killing move of his flower blossom tier opponent and managed to land his own attack, even if he had only left behind a very tiny wound on Yao Huiyu's face, which was completely superficial. A hush fell all around them. The Rain Emperor was astonished. Zhu Xin'er's beautiful eyes shone brightly, whereas Tong Jiming trembled. Only Hunyo was clapping her hands wildly and broke the silence with her applause. Yao Huiyu's expression changed repeatedly, but finally returned to impassiveness. He exuded an absolutely relaxed air and even smiled. He said, "Not bad, not bad. In my whole life, this is the first time that I have been wounded by someone who is 10 years younger than me. I've said before that I would only strike 3 times. Ling Han, there are still 20 months. Within these 20 months, even if I meet you once again, I will pretend that I have not seen you. However, 20 months later, no matter where you're hiding, I will find you and kill you. I will step on your corpse and break through to the 2nd level of my path of the sword." He had completely recovered his forceful manner and brimmed with confidence. He turned to Zhu Xin'er and said, "Xin'er, I'm sorry. I was not able to help you collect the spiritual herb, but please don't worry. I will immediately return to the middle state and definitely help you get spiritual herb." After saying so, he nodded at Tong Jiming, and the two of them turned around and left. Ling Han's eyes stayed on Yao Huiyu's figure. The next time they met, he would definitely not take advantage of the fact that he had an understanding of mysterious 3,000. Instead, he would use real battle prowess to defeat this second coming of the Sword Emperor. Sword Emperor, it would be good if you had managed to enter the Reel of Gods. I shall definitely seek you out in the future for a good battle. Ling Han's confidence soared. He was certain that he would be able to break through to the Flower Blossom tier in 2 years' time. Grandmaster Ling, how much crimson red chilling ice grass do you need to use to concoct your alchemical pill? Please leave some for Xin'er. Zhu Xin'er bowed to Ling Han. Whether it was because of his identity as an Earth-grade alchemist or because of the battle prowess he currently possessed, she dared not use forceful means. Furthermore, she was most impressed by a genius of martial arts. Ling Han, with his cultivation of the 9th layer of spiritual ocean tier though, he had temporarily raised his cultivation to the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, was capable of wounding an elite cultivator of the flower blossom tier, especially when it was the kind of monster that Yao Huiyu was. It naturally filled her with an endless respect for him. Her beautiful eyes blazed, extremely enchanting. Meanwhile, the Rain Emperor smiled slightly and said, Ling Han, I will still stay for some time in this dark devil forest, and when I reach the 9th layer of flower blossom tier, I will enter the other regions to travel. Therefore, if you encounter any trouble during this time, you can come here and look for me. Many thanks, Rain Emperor. Ling Han raised his clasped hands in thanks. There was a protective screen that separated all 4 great regions and the middle state. A weaker person could freely pass through, but the higher one's cultivation, the harder it would be to pass through this barrier. For example, it was possible for a cultivator in the spiritual infant tier to pass through, but their cultivation would be greatly decreased. Thus, if one wanted to travel to the various regions and the middle state, the flower blossom tier was the best cultivation level for it. One would still be strong enough to ensure his own safety, yet would not be weakened in the process of passing through the barrier. The Rain Emperor looked over Ling Han and Zhu Xin'er a few times, laughed loudly, and leaped through the air and left. Zhu Xin'er's face reddened from the way he was looking at them. Thankfully, she had a white veil to cover her face, so no one could see how she currently resembled a peach. Grandmaster Ling, she said to Ling Han shyly, her beautiful eyes clear and like honey, enough to make one's heart drunk with the sweetness. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, 1 month later, bring enough origin crystals or other ingredients. Formation techniques would be all right as well. I can sell the crimson red chilling ice grass to you. If it was 1 month, there should be quite a few stalks of crimson red chilling ice grass in the Black Tower, so it would be fine to sell off 1 stalk. Really? Zhu Xin'er asked, extremely excited. Ling Han revealed an impatient expression and countered, I am an Earth-grade alchemist. Do you think I would lie to a little girl like you? Instantly, the corner of Zhu Xin'er's mouth twitched, and she almost charged up to him to stab him with her sword. Chapter 425, Return to Extreme Yang City. Chapter 425, Return to Extreme Yang City. Zhu Xin'er, ranked 13th in the prodigy role of the North region. In the ranking tournament that would come about a month later, it was a sure thing for her to be ranked among the top 3. It was not an impossible thing for her to be ranked first even. Furthermore, she was the greatest beauty of the North region. Without even showing her whole face, she was capable of making the excellent disciples of Heaven's Sword sect be at her beck and call, trying their best to gain her favor. How enchanting was she to be able to do that? Yet someone actually ignored her charms and actually rebuked her as a little girl. Zhu Xin'er was really very displeased. If Ling Han was an old man in his 50s or 60s, she would have nothing to say. But it was obvious that this guy was 3 or 4 years younger than herself, yet acted all aged and experienced. How could she not explode with anger? Most importantly, Ling Han's expression seemed to be so natural. He did not look at all like he was playing a cat and mouse game with her. This was practically like stabbing a few dozen times directly into Zhu Xin'er's heart that had always been so confident. At this moment, she really felt a strong impulse to pull off her veil. She was sure that once Ling Han saw her magnificent beauty, he, too, would fall captive to her charms. However, firstly, she had never wanted to make use of her beauty, and secondly, she was more fearful that Ling Han would fall for her and use the crimson red chilling ice grass, or his status as an Earth-grade alchemist, to force her to his will. Thus, she gritted her teeth and suppressed this kind of impulsive urge. Grandmaster Ling, you look to be only 17 or 18 years old. If Xin'er is a little girl, then what are you? She countered. Silly girl, whether one is mature or not is decided by one's mental age, not by the way one looks. I know already just by listening to you that you're really a silly girl. Ling Han shrugged, turned and left. Meanwhile, Hunyou made a face at Zhu Xin'er, then caught up to Ling Han. Tugging on the corner of Ling Han's shirt, she giggled in laughter. Damn, damn, damn. Zhu Xin'er felt like she was about to go crazy. How could there be such a man that would drive one to such anger? He was really too irritating, wasn't he? He really made one want to throw something at him, right? Ling Han was very satisfied. This trip to the Dark Devil Forest was practically perfect. Not only did he reap massive benefits from this journey, he had also managed to conjure a demon emperor and solve a huge problem. He had also met the Rain Emperor again. This dominating emperor had already set out on his path of a ruler, and his future achievements were boundless. He brought Hunyou with him back to Extreme Yang City. If Yinlan already managed to obtain the 9-leaf black Anaderma for him, he would be able to concoct the Restore Spirit pill. Zhu Xin'er actually caught up with them and traveled alongside Ling Han. This made Hunyou very displeased. She felt that this woman that liked to move her behind as she walked was really too annoying. Why did she keep trying to seduce her Ling Han? Ling Han had already transplanted the crimson red chilling ice grass. Actually, this stalk of spiritual herb had yet to reach full maturity, but after growing in the Black Tower for over a dozen days, it should be mature enough. Thus, when Ling Han returned to Extreme Yang City, this stalk of spiritual herb was fully grown, but bore only 3 pieces of fruit. Yet the main stem very rapidly wilted, as if it had transferred all its life into these 3 pieces of fruit. The fruit could not be used. The value of the crimson red chilling ice grass lay in its stem. However, these 3 pieces of fruit meant that over a month later, Ling Han would be able to gain 3 stalks of 100-year-old crimson red chilling ice grass. At that time, he would use one and sell another to Zhu Xin'er. He would leave the last to continue bearing fruit, and in the future, he would no longer be short of this spiritual herb. He returned to the inn, yet found out that Lu Yutong and the others had long moved out. However, they had left bearing an address for Ling Han with a waiter. Naturally, it was because Lu Yutong and Li Sichan had decided, and finally found a new home for them. When they reached Extreme Yang City, Zhu Xin'er floated away, whereas Ling Han went to his new home. It was located in the eastern part of the city. From the outside, it looked very ordinary, but there was actually a sizable lake inside. Willow trees hung over the lake, making for a very pleasant scenery. Furthermore, there were platforms and towers, water pavilions and stone bridges, making one feel as if one had found a spot of calm and chaos. They had actually even hired guards at the doorway. They halted Ling Han's advance. This made Hunyou display her ferocious true nature, and she almost bit them. Thankfully, Zhu Wuju just happened to come out and hurriedly welcomed Ling Han into the residence. He also informed the guards that this was the real owner of the Ling residence. They had also hired some servants to work in the manor. After all, the manor was extremely large, and Lu Yutong and the others had other matters they needed to do, primarily cultivation and pill concoction. So how would they have time to do trivial tasks? Soon, Lu Yutong and the others came out to receive him. Ling Han roughly grasped the current state of events. Whether it was Forget Not or Alchemist King Pavilion, due to Lu Jitong's care, naturally no one dared to make any designs on them. However, because Ling Han had left for too long, the ingredients at Forget Not were almost finished. From last month onwards, they had even used the method of selling those dishes that needed these ingredients and limited the amount. Otherwise, they would have had no more ingredients to sell by now. It was the same for the Alchemist King Pavilion. The higher-grade alchemical pills that Ling Han had concocted were practically sold out, and although Li Sichan had considerable talent in alchemy, she was still a very far way off from the Alchemy Emperor. Thankfully, Ling Han finally returned. Naturally, business matters had to be dealt with as soon as possible. Ling Han withdrew a large amount of fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as some livestock from the Black Tower, and told Zhu Wujiu to deliver them to Forget Not. As for alchemical pills, when he had the time, he would enter into the Black Tower to concoct them. After all, they needed time to be concocted, and could not just be withdrawn like those food ingredients. When it was time for lunch, Gong Letian came without an invitation. He was already addicted to the good stuff sold in Forget Not. Yet after they limited the supply of dishes, he could only eat one excellent dish with each meal. How could his mouth, which had grown picky, tolerate this? Thus, he would come every day to join them for a meal because Lu Yutong and the others had long become picky as well and had to have dishes made with the food ingredients from the Black Tower for every meal. When he saw that Ling Han had returned, this guy immediately pounced on him and wailed, "Brother, you have finally come back. I'm almost about to die from waiting for your meat." Ling Han could not help but wear a dark expression. Did this guy know how to talk? He wanted to eat his flesh. Ling Han had returned today, so everyone naturally needed not continue conserving their supplies. Multiple kinds of gourmet dishes were served. They fiercely ate their meal, causing all of their stomachs to become rounded from the feast. After Gong Letian left, Ling Han gathered all of them around him. "This is the heavenly luck stone," Ling Han said, and explained the effects as well. This made everyone astonished. If they refined this small rock, then when they broke through to the next tier in future, they would gain an additional 4 or 5 battle stars worth of battle prowess. That was really too shocking. How could such a priceless treasure exist in this world? They were people of Rain Country, and due to their limited knowledge, they naturally could not have heard of such a treasure. Everyone was extremely excited. Even elite cultivators of the Flower Blossom and Spiritual Infant tier would fight over such a treasure so that they could help their own juniors raise their ability. But Ling Han actually managed to get as many as 9 pieces of such a rock. It was really astonishing. They were filled with gratitude and each swallowed a piece of heavenly luck stone. Once they broke through to the next major tier, their battle prowess would spike up a long way. This would be proven earliest through Lu Yutong and Zhu Wujiao, because they were both already on the 9th layer of the Gushing Spring tier. They had already strengthened their cultivation foundations close to perfection and were ready to break through. Ken Yi would be much slower. He had just broken through to the 2nd layer of the Spiritual Ocean tier, and still had a very long way to go until the Spiritual Pedestal tier. Yuan was worse off. Because he was cultivating anew, he was indeed advancing at a faster rate than Ken Yi. However, because his cultivation had regressed, even if he once again broke through to the Spiritual Pedestal tier, he would still only be recovering his original ability and not breaking through. As a result, the benefits offered by the Heavenly Luck Stone would only be visible when he broke through to the Flower Blossom tier. On the other side, Li Si-chan was unwilling to swallow the Heavenly Luck Stone no matter what. To her, this was an extreme waste. She only needed the advancement of her cultivation level, and it would be enough for her to be able to concoct alchemical pills. For her, very powerful battle prowess was really not of much use. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.